Greetings, everyone. Sorry about the delay, but finally we are here and live. And by we, I mean myself and my distinguished guest, Michael from Retroblasting. Welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you doing on the other side of the Atlantic?
I'm doing quite well.
Good.
It's afternoon, early evening here, so I am up and about and awake.
Awesome.
Unlike Tom, who I take is still in La La Land somewhere, but he'll probably come and join us before long here. So yeah, and as the more perceptive of you realized just before we went live, and this is part of the delay because we have a new breaking news story which is slightly more interesting than Leslie Headland's Star Wars that I'm not going to see in any event. I don't know about you, how excited you were for that.
I'm not excited for it at all. And, you know, I saw the news yesterday about how she's talking about, oh, I'm hiring writers that don't, know anything about Star Wars. And I'm like, well, that's just the corporate playbook 101 being played right there. That's nothing new to me. So unsurprising, another day at corporate Disney. Yeah. So I'm not seeing her stuff. No way.
Yeah, no, exactly. I'm not too excited either, have to admit that. So what happened instead then is that Indiana Jones has just met a new hurdle. More specifically, it's the shoulder injury that not we, but that we first learned about alongside everyone else earlier this week, on Wednesday to be exact, when everyone learned that Harrison Ford had suffered a shoulder injury. And because of that shoulder injury, they would have to adjust filming around him because there might be some level of downtime there. Well, as it turns out, this is something that we just learned from Grace Randolph. So it's not in the trades or anything like that just yet. But I don't think that she would lie about something like this. Filming will be delayed by 6 weeks. So that became our new main topic of today. So we're going to be discussing that. We'll talk some Leslie Headland and we'll talk about everything else. But before we get into that, Michael, how are you? What are you up to?
I'm good, man. I just finished a restoration video of an old G.I. Joe toy yesterday. That'll go live this evening on YouTube. I'm working on some big, what I call, mini documentary projects that are, looking out a few months. And of course, we're getting ramped up for Iconocon as well, which will happen July 7th through the 11th. And you guys have graciously jumped in the ring to be involved with that as well. So everything's kind of coming together. The final schedule's being laid out, and we're sending out, links and announcements to all the different streams and videos that are going to be part of that. It's almost going to be round the clock because every channel that's involved in Iconocon, they're representing every continent except Antarctica and South America. And South America is just by coincidence, we didn't end up with a YouTube channel from there. But when we looked, we were like, oh, wow, this is literally an around the world event. So it'll be going round the clock with live streams and new videos premiering and discussions. It's going to be great. And we have some celebrity guests as well. We've got Lance Guest and Catherine Mary Stewart from The Last Starfighter to do a specific live stream about that film. We have Catherine Mary Stewart and Kelly Maroney from Night of the Comet doing a whole discussion about that film from the 80s. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Excellent. Yeah, and as you mentioned, we at Midnight's Edge are involved with that as well. I will be hosting a sword and sorcery panel for you guys, which is very close to my heart. So just stay tuned for that, and we'll have much more information about that very, very soon. But tell us briefly, for those that didn't catch it, exactly what is Iconocon? What's the concept?
Iconocon is just a celebration of Gen X pop culture. So it's going to be a celebration of the 1980s, but not just toys or movies. We're going to try and touch on a lot of things, whether it was the music of the 80s. We're actually bringing in the guys who run La La Land Records, who do a lot of film score restoration.
They do some amazing soundtracks and everything.
Yeah, we're going to have them on to discuss, restoring and preserving movie scores and what movie scores of the 80s were like and the special challenges involved with keeping them, preserved and remastered. We're going to have, discussions about even things like catalogs of the 80s, like store catalogs, and what that was like before the internet, where we were buying from catalogs in the different retail outlets. It's going to be a fun series of live streams all across about, I'd say, 20 channels, with people from at least 30 or 40 channels representing on these different discussions. Melinda and Tony at Analog Toys, Melinda of course at Retroblasting, and Tony at Analog Toys have done a bang up job putting this schedule together, coming up with the topics, pulling the guests together, pulling the highlighted channels together like yourself. And it's going, from July 7th through the 11th. It's going to be a fun time. Really will.
Yeah, I look greatly forward to it. And we'll soon have our panel there, at least ready. So because it'll be a live panel for you all to come and enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, let's say hi to everyone we have in the chat. We have Rob Altus here, who says, "Hail Midnight's Edge in the morning, retroblasting and chat."
Hey, Rob.
Yes, indeed. Hail, Rob and everyone else. And we also have Jesse Miller here, who says, "That sounds like a free for all." Awesome. Yeah, indeed it will be. So that should be awesome. And we have Max here. We have Max Relax, who says, "Hail." So does Parrot Head, "Hail all." Whereas Project Cambrian points out, "Harrison Ford and the Hospital of Retrospection."
He's not wrong. He's not wrong.
Neither is Dr. Dave, who points out Indiana Jones and the Bath Chair of Doom.
Yeah, it's shaping up to be that way. I mean, if the Millennium Falcon didn't kill him, on the set of Force Awakens, this could cripple him. I'm not making light of Harrison Ford. I love the man as a performer. But yeah, we'll get into this in a minute, I'm sure.
Yeah, we will indeed. First, I saw that. Let's see. Fractal Jack, he wants some validation. So yeah, fine. Here you are validated, Fractal Jack. So you are approved and ready to go. And so is Elim Garak, who says, "Hail all." And we also have a couple of super chats. When I can bring up on screen is our good friend who says, "Hi, Retroblasting and Andre. Looking forward to Iconocon."
Awesome.
Yeah, so am I. That's going to be awesome. It's going to be really, really cool. And then let's see what else we have here. Oh, we have our good friend Valiant Renegade in the chat, who says, "Hail chat and Midnight's Edge." And hail Valiant. Everyone go check out his channel. He's been doing amazing work lately. Check out his interview with Kamran Pasha, which is a great complementary feature to our own. And Jesse Miller also points out that Indiana Jones jokes are running hot today.
Yeah.
And the day has barely started with these news right here.
How could they not?
Yeah.
How could they not?
Indeed. I want to see which other super chats I can get up here. Well, Harry Partridge Live says, "Retroblasting and Midnight's Edge. What a combination."
Harry Partridge, one of my favorite YouTubers, and I appreciate that sentiment, sir. Thank you. It's great to have you here.
Indeed. And I also completely agree with the sentiment. It's a blast to have Michael from Retroblasting here always. I have to get Melinda in one of these days as well.
Oh, you know what? When she's finally done with this Iconocon thing, she's literally building spreadsheets and building databases.
Done amazing. Like, if she's listening, Melinda, you've done amazing. My hat's off to you. You've done a great job organizing all of this.
Yeah, it's been a Herculean feat, and I'm sure after she gets past this, she will open up to jumping on, channels and doing stuff. But right now, she's all focused on making sure this all goes off without a hitch.
Yeah, I don't blame her. I will certainly do my best to ensure that at least our little part of it does.
Yeah, she's looking for thumbnails and links by June 27th from everybody, and we have your thumbnail, and I'm sure we'll get your link here in the next day or so, and we'll
I'll have it over the course of the weekend.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, so that'll be cool. Peter Hahn also says Raiders of the Lost franchise.
Yeah.
It should have been lost.
Yeah. It's been lost in the basement of Lucasfilm for years now, and they've dusted it off. And then,
unfortunately, they found it. Would have been better off if it had stayed lost.
Right. Don't look, Andre. Keep your eyes shut. Like, yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. But we have a few more super chats. We're going to go through them before we start getting into the topic at hand. Stephen Otten says, "Hail Andre, Michael, Renches, and everyone in the chat. Indiana Jones and the search for quality health care."
Oh, man.
And Gran was 42 sent us a super sticker, so thanks for that. And then let's get into the... No. Before that, Laserpan says, "Love Midnight's Edge in the morning. Always a little better when Retroblasting is on."
Well, thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. He is from the Infinity Equation podcast. Great show on Friday nights. Check them out if you like talking about modern toy collecting.
Awesome. Very, very cool. And then going into the classics before we start diving into whatever it was Indiana Jones dive into and damaged his shoulder. Our good friend Mike the Mexican Iron Man started us off for $15. Thank you so much. And he says, "All hail and welcome the great Retroblasting. Love that channel.
Oh,
Let's
thank you.
kick this thing off with coverage of another soon-to-be epic Disney Star Wars failure. Yep, Mr. Positive Mexican is already Mr. Negative." Then we have who said, "Hi, gents. Hello, everyone." And Spider Unlimited said for $9.99, this would have been just before we changed thumbnail into Indiana Jones again. "Leslie Headland, the constructed Frankenstein monster of Harvey. TBH, I'd sleep with Leslie Nielsen before that. Thanks for the thumbnail." Yeah, you're most welcome. But let us not shame anyone for how they look. And Spider Unlimited, I'm sure that she wouldn't sleep with you either. You just may be the wrong gender. So it's not a non-issue. And Coalescing Tormentum also points out, referencing this super chat, that at Spider Unlimited, "I think it's hilarious that you'd consider necrophilia before being with Headland." So yeah, but with that, enough of the look shaming. She can't help how she looks. So yeah, but let us. Oh yeah, and she's married. So yeah, well, you're probably not going to get her anyway. So problem solved. And with that, I'm going to see if I can find the link to the story because I had it here. Just
Melinda. By the way, Melinda is in the chat, and she said, "Ooh, I'd love to be on Midnight's Edge." So,
well, if she has the time and opportunity, and right now, she's welcome to hop on.
I think she's actually working right now, but I think she's definitely open. So,
yeah, cool, very cool. I'm just gonna facilitate Tom coming in here sooner rather than later, and then I'm gonna prepare the first main story here. Let's see where we found that one here. Just give me 1 second. I wasn't quite ready to have to sort this out for myself, but we'll get there in a moment. Meanwhile, have you been working on any cool videos that everyone should be seeing?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I'm working on a few long-term projects right now. I just finished, like I said, a video that's going to drop tonight. It's just a toy restoration video of a vintage Cobra Stun from 1986 from the G.I. Joe line. I have a subset of subscribers that love watching people repair toys, and I've been doing that since the beginning of the channel. And then I'm working on a few things with Lio Convoy Reviews, which is another great YouTube channel I love. We're working on doing a complete retrospective on the Thundercats. I will be,
cool.
I'll be the voice of dissension. He will be the voice of support for Thundercats, but we're going to be doing a fully scripted, produced, B-rolled, mini documentary in 2 parts, one about the show, one about the toys. I'm also currently working on a longer form YouTube documentary about the complete history of Robin Hood in film and television. I've been doing copious amounts of research on that. We're scouting locations to shoot some of the documentary, commentary footage, where I'm, the on-camera host. And I'm even, I've even been talking to the man who made the longbows for Ridley Scott's Kingdom of Heaven and Robin Hood to send an English longbow so that we can have that for the production. I'm talking to some authors. I'm talking to a number of people in England. So that's in the works. And then as far as, short term, I'm trying to do a review of the Fright Zone from the Masters of the Universe line from 1980.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, 85.
Nice. I always wanted that playset, never got it.
Yeah.
That big blue lion, like a danger stage, whatever thing it was called. And Tom just joined us. Hey, Tom.
Hello.
Hi, Tom.
Good morning, Michael. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Don't ask.
Okay.
Well, he's better now that he's in the land.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Only a good 25 minutes too late, but better late than never. So yeah,
we actually toyed with the idea, Andre, of having the clip of Elijah Wood from Lord of the Rings at the very beginning of Fellowship, where he stands up, looks at Gandalf in the cart, and he says, "You're late." We thought about having that for Iconocon panels.
And the answer is, "You're the father."
But we haven't implemented that.
Nice. And I have the story here, but before that, we're gonna just do a couple of more of the super chats that we got in here. We have 66 Starship Alien who says for $10 Australian. Come on, man. Do we expect the same excitement from the original indie or even the sequels? Nope. At least they're filming in my hometown. I'd love to think they will wow cinema audiences. Yeah, actually, let's all hope that they do, because this is Indiana Jones. He's an icon. No one here wants to see Indiana Jones fail. On the contrary, we want to see Indiana Jones succeed. We want to all be wrong. We want James Mangold to deliver the best Indiana Jones film that we could possibly get this day and age with an agent Harrison Ford. We're just worried that we're not going to get it. And we'll get into that momentarily. Stephen Otten also said, phone and television sound perfectly synced. First time for everything. Indiana Jones and the Frankensteinian abomination.
That's good.
Nice one. Good one. And I saw we also have Polly in the chat. Hey, Polly. And we have Stephanie Yanisek Smuggler's Cantina who says, let's talk about Headland. Yeah, we'll get into Headland later on. Oh, there's Melinda. Hey, Melinda. You're doing amazing, I said already, but anytime, you're welcome anytime. So just let us know when you have the opportunity and feel free to hop on. And you do have the link in your email if you should find the time. With that, though, let us get into the story which got a Battlefield promotion to being the first story of the day. This comes to us from Grace Randolph by way of Pirates and Princesses and their Disney insider, WDW Pro. So we have no information here. I haven't heard anything, simply just reporting on what they're saying. And the headline of their article is, Indiana Jones 5 filming paused. Remember, this is a contrast to what we were told. We were told when his injury was first announced on Deadline Hollywood that filming would resume. They would just film around his treatment and stuff like that. Now it's paused because Harrison Ford injury more severe. And then the story continues. That's a wrap for the time being. Harrison Ford's previously detailed injury is more severe than previously known. While we had heard from sources, again, we here is WDW Pro, so I'm just reading his words, that Disney was being overtly optimistic about the injury in their public relations release, it seems that Indiana Jones 5 will now have to stop filming for a minimum of 6 weeks while Ford recovers. Confirmation of what we've been hearing is coming from Grace Randolph of Behind the Trailer. And then they reference a tweet from Grace Randolph. And again, you can say what you want about Grace Randolph, but she has been right on quite a few occasions, although many don't give her credit for that. And something like this, I don't think that she would put anything off. She got a lot of flack for what she said about Pedro Pascal and the filming of Mandalorian Season 3. But the absence of everything we've heard since there kind of lends credibility to what she said all along. Anyway, what she tweeted was, I just heard that Indiana Jones 5 did indeed have to shut down because of Harrison Ford's injury. For 6 weeks. Feel better, Indy. Then the original story continues. And remember, a studio is only going to put out best case scenario information. We're hearing it could easily be 8 weeks. And while the positivity from Disney had been that the film could simply shoot around the superstar's absence, it does not seem to be the case with filming reportedly having to come to a full halt. Earlier this week, that had seemed to be the case with more flashback or time travel scenes in production. And then there's like some pictures of behind-the-scenes pictures from World War II. One thing we're hoping for during this hiatus is that James Mangold can keep his behavior appropriate on Twitter. The last blah, 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 going back to James Mangold. And then moving ahead from that. An issue now for the film is that shoulder injuries can take a very long time to heal. When a person is 78 years old, the genetic reality is that the human body not only takes longer to heal, but it also declines more rapidly with lethargic activity. So beyond just the shoulder injury, Harrison Ford will also have to manage his overall health. After all, he's doing things in a movie that almost no 78-year-old person would ever attempt. That said, he's a beast physically, riding a reported 40 miles a day on his bike even at his age. And although it's a cliche, if anybody can do it, Harrison Ford would be the one. With a 6-week break in filming, we're now getting very close to having to delay this film, but nothing has been announced. And that is essentially the gist of the story. That filming, according to Grace Randolph, has been delayed for 6 weeks. And according to WDW Pro, that's optimistic, and we could easily be looking at an 8-week delay, meaning a full 2-month delay. That's pretty much the entirety of the filming schedule right there. I mean, how long were they expecting to film? 4 months? That's then they're like 50% behind schedule right there. Michael, what do you make of this?
Well, the first thing that I'm thinking is, you know, when they were filming Temple of Doom, which I know Harrison Ford was a lot younger, but it's less about Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford suffered a horrendous spinal injury during a fight with a thuggy stuntman, and he had to have experimental back surgery. And for the weeks that he was out, you know, and trying to recover from that and get all that arranged, being flown back to the United States, they were using his stuntman, Vic Armstrong, to shoot all the scenes as double. And Vic Armstrong, you know, looked almost just like Harrison Ford once he was in the hat and jacket, and they were able to use him to shoot around all that. Now, that was in 1983 for a 1984 release. Nowadays, they have not only the stuntmen that are body doubles, but they also have all of this face technology that they're clearly using to de-age Harrison Ford at some point in this movie. My question is, why can't they use it to put Harrison Ford's face on a stuntman to keep the project going so that they don't fall behind?
Well, I think the question is how much, I'm sure they would do that anyway for stunts.
Mm-hmm.
But if what is required is close-up of his face and him interacting with other people and basically filming the movie without him, I don't know how well that is going to fly or that you could even do it.
Yeah, I mean, the way they did it in Temple of Doom was they just literally shot right up to the points where they needed Harrison Ford's face. And then they took a log of that, and then they literally brought him back after he recovered. And yeah, they had a few inserts and close-ups sprinkled throughout the film to get him in there in the appropriate moment, so you know that Harrison is Indy. And in other words, there's precedent for this on an Indiana Jones film, and they should have anticipated this being a problem with him now 78 instead of 43, like he was on Temple of Doom.
Yeah, I'm sure. And then I see some comments here commenting on their experiences with shoulder injuries. Gran Wasu 42 says a shoulder allocation is no fun and takes a long time to recover. 6 weeks is already optimistic.
Yeah.
Let's see. Script Doctor says all filming halted for 6 weeks. Why can't they do second unit coverage and other character scenes in the interim?
Yeah, that's why I'm not so sure about this until we get a little bit more confirmation.
Yeah, to me it seems weird that they would halt everything, because you would think that they would be able to do all the other stuff.
Well, and even if he hurt his shoulder, as long as he's not in a hospital bed, they can shoot anything where he's not moving around, really. I mean, if there's like scenes where he's just kind of standing there or in a seat somehow or whatever, they can shoot all that kind of stuff. Like, that's kind of the second unit kind of stuff, like script saying only first unit just because you got Harrison there. But I mean, you can work around it a little bit. So I don't know about this whole everything getting shut down for 6 weeks thing, but it is strange. I don't know if I just don't know if that rings true or not.
I'm sure we'll learn more sooner or later. I also think it's weird that they would shut everything down, because yeah, they must be able to do some kind of coverage. But again, I will reiterate what I said when we first learned of his injury on Wednesday. Namely, I think this is why James Mangold freaked out on Twitter in the first place. I think this happened not this week. I think it happened in the first week of filming. And they've probably been filming coverage ever since, and that is why Mangold was so freaked out and upset. Because he probably had a hunch, this is going to go bad.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, that's what we said the other day, and if this is true, that's definitely the case. I'd suspect.
I mean, Hugh Jackman in Logan was aged up in the makeup and everything. With this, Harrison Ford is this age, like for real.
He's just fortunate it wasn't a hip. Can you imagine the headlines?
Oh, I know, right? Yeah.
Yeah, as I like to say, like, something happens to your hips that age, you ain't walking away from it.
Right.
Probably ever again.
Right. Yeah, this whole thing is it's part of this hubris that, and again, I've been in the Indiana Jones fan community since long before there was even a YouTube, long before, I go all the way back to the late 90s on message boards like IndieFan. I wrote for the Raider.net. I wrote for IndieGear.com as a staff member simultaneously. And I was the guy that was getting, beaten up, understandably. I'm not a victim, but I was getting beaten up because my hot take for years, even prior to Crystal Skull, had always been Indiana Jones was originally conceived as an alternative to James Bond, a James Bond type adventure serial, series of films. Why are they not considering a recast on this? And a lot of the fans seem to think that only Harrison Ford can be this character forever. And I reminded them that James Bond fans in the 60s had the same attitude about Sean Connery, and the franchise eventually, went on and went to other peaks of success. Now, my point in saying that is, okay, even if you guys are opposed to a recast of this character and you're going to end this franchise, why would Disney throw away the second most valuable IP within Lucasfilm with one last movie? I don't understand their strategy on this fundamentally, and it involves obviously bringing a 78-year-old man back to be an action hero, de-aging him for half the film allegedly. It doesn't make any sense to me. But from a cutthroat business standpoint, it's never made any sense to me how they've handled the Indiana Jones franchise.
It makes perfect sense to me.
Okay.
That is very, very simple, because you say like Lucasfilm, as if Lucasfilm is an entity, a timeless, eternal entity with a mind of its own.
Mm-hmm.
This is not the case. Lucasfilm, like every other company, has different people in charge, and they have different strategies. And what's ultimately a guiding principle for many of them is that they'll make the decisions that ultimately benefit and favor themselves the most. Like, for instance, someone that expects to be in a company for many, many years to come, then their interests are aligned with the company's interests. So they will very often want to make the kind of decisions that they know will benefit the company in the long run, because that will also benefit them. If they do good, they get to stay in charge of that company and get bonuses and everything like that, and then it's all good and well. But as their tenure reaches its natural conclusion, then for many it's a matter of how much can I cash in while I still can, and whatever comes afterwards, that's someone else's problem. One of the star examples to me there is Justice League, with everything that went down to that. There you had Kevin Tsujihara, who was basically at the end of his career. He knew that he was not long for Warner, that he would probably be kicked out or asked to retire or something like that the moment AT&T took over. So he made the decision, apparently, that, you know what, if we delay this Justice League Whedon cut and give Whedon more time to fix it, let Henry Cavill finish filming his scenes for Mission Impossible, and then we bring him in when he's done with that, so that he can shave instead of us having to spend like millions on bad CGI. We'll just delay it, and that'll be the better long-term investment. It would have been the better long-term investment, but if it hadn't been released that calendar year, he wouldn't get that in his bonus. So he decided, you know what, screw what happens later. We put this movie out this year. That means $5 million more in bonus for me. And here you have Kathleen Kennedy at the end of her career. She is intrinsically linked to Indiana Jones. It's an open secret in the industry how badly she bungled Star Wars. I mean, very few will say it openly, but everyone knows. Everyone knows. And she's, from what we have heard, she's had a very hard time finding someone else who are willing to hire her of the big studios to run a division or something like that. Because, oh yeah, they love her, she's great going to the cocktail parties, but giving money to her? She's at the end of her career, so she can do this Indiana Jones thing, and if not that, then what? And what happens to Lucasfilm afterwards? Who the hell cares? Not her problem anymore. Her problem right now is securing whatever legacy she can and whatever payout she can before it's too late. Simple as that. It's ego. I have to look at the individuals rather than at the company level.
No, I get that. I get that for sure. I just wonder what the company's plan will be after Kathleen Kennedy exits the stage with Indiana Jones. Like, she can say all she wants that only Harrison is Indy, and Indy ends when Harrison doesn't play the role anymore. But I really have a hard time believing that Disney is just going to let Indiana Jones as a franchise lie fallow.
I'm sure that in another 5-10 years, Disney will reboot Indiana Jones and do Raiders of the Lost Ark remake. Wouldn't surprise me one bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. It's, again, they can say it now. they can say it now, but in 5 years, 10 years, buy everyone out if they're still alive. Nothing prevents Disney from remaking it however they deem fit in the future.
Well,
Words are cheap.
Yeah, words are cheap. That's a great way to put it, Andre.
Yeah. So, does my explanation on what I think is going on make any sense to you?
Oh yeah, totally makes sense. Totally makes sense completely. I wasn't trying to imply that there weren't individual. Okay, Tom, go ahead.
I'm kidding.
Tom, go ahead.
I was kidding.
I wasn't trying to imply that there weren't individual egos involved. What I was saying was individual egos in corporations, unless they're the guy at the very, very top, they tend to get checked if they fall out of common sense with profit. And in the case of this, I would be looking at the top brass going, they wouldn't want to have paid $4.4 billion for a company's IPs and then just immediately throw one away on a mulligan that is Indiana Jones 5 and say, oh, this is the end of this franchise. Like, I don't think they would allow that to happen in the long term. Yeah,
I wouldn't think so, but again, Kathleen Kennedy, we do not know the details, but she has a very, very strong link to the Indiana Jones.
Well, yeah, it was her,
which goes way beyond her having her being the head of Lucasfilm right now. She has more than that
because it's under it's a Kennedy Marshall production, isn't it?
Yeah,
for one. Yeah. And I've said that before. It doesn't matter. She didn't have to be at Lucasfilm to have anything to do with Indiana Jones. If she retired 5 years ago, right after The Force Awakens or whatever, and they were making Indiana Jones now, she'd still be there. Like, that's what I keep reminding people. Frankie's there. I mean, we got pictures of that too. So, I mean, he's there. I mean, they're there. I mean, she's not going anywhere in that sense. But I mean, I heard again the other day some more rumblings coming out. I think this was from Comic Book News or Cosmic Book News. I think picked it up too, but came out of another outlet with the whole Kathleen Kennedy is actually being replaced. But their motivation for their story was that Atlantic article, which is strange. So I was just like, okay, here it comes again. We got Mr. Matthew Kadish in the chat. He says, sometimes I hate being right.
Yeah, and again, I think that you were right already, and that's why Mangold blew off on you.
Yeah, I think that's a plausibility. If this is true, I mean, it just seems excessive, but at the same time, I mean, he's no spring chicken. And if Mangold was already fuming from leaks all week long and probably being in a situation where he knew his actor was going to be out for a while, because I guarantee you by Sunday, they still probably didn't know what was going on. We didn't hear about it until, what, Monday or Tuesday? Or was it Wednesday we talked about? The last show, wasn't it?
Wednesday.
Yeah, Wednesday. So, like, we didn't even find out about it till Wednesday. And as we tell you guys, this is the way the movie news usually runs in Hollywood. And by the time we find out about it over here, it's already kind of old news. But now this is something that until we get some kind of confirmation from somebody within the studio, I'm questioning it, but I'm not surprised.
There's two things I wanted to address. One, there's some comment in the chat about ageism, and I want to bring up, some let's get real for a minute here. There's nothing ageist about playing a character that's age realistic and appropriate for what that character can ostensibly do at that age. So let me give you two direct parallels. One, we all know the famous story of Peter Cushing on Star Wars spending most of his time out of his riding boots because at that age they were uncomfortable to wear, and he walked around in his socks and house slippers the whole time, right? Which, no, there's nothing wrong with that. The way they shot it and what he had to do as a character, and at his age, it was totally fine. There was nothing wrong with that. Harrison Ford, if I recall correctly, is now older than Peter Cushing was in Star Wars. And if you watch behind the scenes footage from The Force Awakens, you will see Harrison Ford running around shooting his blaster with no boots on, and he's in his socks and slippers because he's at that age where those kind of hero costumes are uncomfortable to wear. There's nothing wrong with playing an age appropriate role and the character at that age. The other thing I wanted to address is somebody saying that if they throw away Indiana Jones, he's implying that there will be original creativity at Disney. If you can show me where there's original creativity at Disney or has been in the last 20 years, I'll buy your beachfront property in Kansas. All right.
Sweet. I got a bunch of it.
So yeah.
Actually, I found something that might, I wouldn't say confirm, but it supports this.
It's not very hard to believe.
No. Well, this is from yesterday out of Express.
Yeah. Go for it.
This is from Disney, though. It says Disney added production will continue while the appropriate course of treatment is evaluated, and the filming schedule will be reconfigured as needed in the coming weeks. So right there, that quote says they probably knew, but even then, whoever said this was setting up the possibility that this could be something a lot more than it is. So now that adds a little bit more weight to this.
Yeah.
And I mean, dude's almost 80 years old.
Yeah, he's 80 years old. I mean, you know, I get that everybody thinks that, oh, you can do anything if you just believe.
And this also points out that it is his shoulder here too. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. And this whole attitude, age is just a number. It's like, no, it's not. Like, I don't want to.
Yeah, it's just a number right up until you're like 60 or something.
Right.
Then it's seriously, like you can stay in the same shape of when you're 30 up till you're 60 if you take good care of yourself. So up till that point, yeah, you can say that age is a number, more or less. But beyond that, it's starting to be a heck of a lot more than just a number.
Yeah, exactly, Andre. Yep.
Yeah, I'm starting to believe this a little bit more. I want to see some confirmation, but yeah, this is telling me that this is a lot more serious than they thought. This is giving good precedence as to why Mangold would have been more upset than we realize, and yeah,
that's what I was thinking. I was like said the whole time that something is off here. He shouldn't be reacting this way. He must have had a really, really bad day or week, and now we know just how bad it was, don't we?
Yeah, and nobody's advocating for Logan's Run. I love this whole idea that trying to treat older people in movies responsibly is somehow wrong. Like, and if you want to have a 78-year-old action hero, then you better break out every single CGI and digital character trick you've got, because your responsibility as the production company is to protect the health and safety of the people working on that movie, including the movie star themselves. I don't understand this whole idea of I'll get off of it, but it's like there's no ageism going on here. It's about responsibility and what is realistic.
Exactly, it's a matter of realism, and it's not ageist to make the statement that at the age of almost 80, you're gonna be set back a little bit from a shoulder injury that would set back a 30-year-old.
Yep,
you would be set back even more, and I saw many people making that point in the comments as well. How when they had a shoulder injury at age 30, that was 8 weeks.
Yep. Yeah, and, Harrison Ford is not made of magic, everybody.
And what if he requires some kind of surgery?
Yes, which he has in the past on Indiana Jones films. Yep.
Yeah, and if he requires surgery, then those 6 weeks
turn into 12, probably.
Yeah, exactly. Then they're going to become 12 weeks really freaking fast.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can see this as being a problem, and definitely, like, I mean, this is a good reason why Mango will be upset. Now, should he have taken it out on Matt and other fans? No. But
that's all.
Well, I was just going to say, because let's be real. If he is out for 6 weeks, and it could be more, that may be the end of this movie.
At some point, they're going to run out of coverage to film.
Well, it's not just that. I was just going to say that might shut down this movie altogether.
Mm-hmm.
And as y'all know, the old saying in Hollywood goes, if you take the film out of the camera, it may never go back in. That's the thing. When a movie gets shut down, the chances of it getting picked back up again are so slim. even with big movies like this, sometimes it can fall apart real quick. Because as I always say, it takes 1,000,001 things for a movie to go right, but only one thing for everything to unravel and go wrong. And this could be the one thing that unravels everything and makes it go wrong. I don't know.
Well, that's the whole thing. I see people saying, "Oh, it's about respect." It's like, I'm saying nothing out of the context of respect. My whole point is we should be respecting these people better by putting them in roles and situations that don't injure them this way, by not dropping the Millennium Falcon on them, for God's sakes. I mean, that's my whole point here. There's different kinds of respect, and some people are like, you should respect this 80-year-old man by letting him go hang gliding, and it's like, well, that's his risk as long as he signs the waiver, but I don't think that's exactly responsible. That has nothing to do with respect.
Well, my dude's crashed 3 planes too.
Yeah, as I pointed out, 3 planes he's crashed. And unlike driving, which is like bad enough because you can do some serious damage in 2 dimensions, when you're flying, you crash in 3 dimensions. So like you can fall down from the sky into a golf court or someone's living room or something like that.
I have nothing but love for Harrison Ford, and I don't want to deride him at all. I want him alive for a long time. I love the guy. I've loved him my whole life. So the attitude that this conversation is disrespectful to Harrison Ford is crazy. I'm trying to keep the guy alive.
Well, as probably the oldest person here, I can say it. We're not being ageist at all. Shit happens when you get old. Stuff falls apart. I mean, it's not fun.
Yeah. There's very few people, I think, in this chat or whatever, that have invested the amount of money, time, and capital into Harrison Ford specific areas of fandom than I have. And I want this man around for a long time. I do not see him as a joke.
I can vouch for that.
Yeah, I do not see him as a joke, and I do not see him as somebody that's being foolish. I do see it as a little crazy, though, that at 78 years old, they want him in full-on Indiana Jones mode. It's like you need to scale back this character a little bit.
What they need to do is the same thing that they did in Indiana Jones Jr., like those 2 series there, where you had basically some guy playing the old Indiana Jones, looking back at his adventures. You could do that. You could have the movie be set in 1981, which is age appropriate for where Indiana Jones should be,
right?
And have him think back to resolve some kind of mystery or something there that involves something from his youth, and then you I don't know,
you don't even have to do that.
Film Chris Pratt and you deep fake Harrison Ford onto him or something. And I just want to be, when we can get it up on screen. Melinda says, as a nurse, I'll say shoulder injuries can take a while and require meds, sling, rest, and not moving your arm over your head in order to recover.
Mm-hmm.
And also depends on the extent of the injury, which we don't know. We don't know what kind of injury he has had. I mean, is it just pure flesh? Is it a ligament? Is it bone?
That's the thing, and that's where I seen in that one article. I'm like, I'm willing to believe this because they may not even know exactly the extent yet. It could take a few days for them to get all the results back and do a bunch more tests. It's hard to say.
Well, by now, they probably have a fairly good idea
they may,
what the injury is. What they don't know is how long it's going to take to recover. I mean, I messed up my knee when I was 30, and they had estimates you're going to make 100% recovery, but is it going to take 8 months, 10, 12, 14? Don't know.
Yeah. I mean, there's people saying, that Harrison Ford wants to do this, and so we should give Harrison Ford leeway. It's like, okay, right, but I want to be a ninja, but I have no gymnastic experience whatsoever. If I went out in the backyard right now in my early 40s and tried to start doing flips, there would be an ambulance called to my house within 15 minutes. It's about realistic expectations. And what's the line at the end of Magnum Force? A man's got to know his limitations. Like I don't understand how fandom has gotten this attitude that, well, if a person wants to do a thing, they should be allowed to do a thing completely without any restrictions, and magic will save them. It's like, well, guess what? Magic didn't save us in this situation. We're now looking at a film that's got a six-week alleged delay. It could be a lot longer. Let's get real, people. Let's get
I
real.
believe in you, Michael.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that.
No, and as far as the recasting thing, that's the funny thing I pointed out the other day is if you go by his actual age, the movie should take place the year that Raiders of the Lost Ark came out.
Right.
So I have nothing against recasting him, and there's so many years in there that they jumped around just with those first 3 films. He could have had a dozen other adventures. I don't see any problem with just recasting him and pretending like it's still Indiana Jones. It can still take place in the 30s or 40s. That way you can go back a little bit more. You can go have him back there punching Yahtzees.
Anthony Ingruber.
That's what I was just about to say. I was like, you can
Sorry,
Ingruber. No, that's fine. Anthony Ingruber, or the other popular ones have been Pratt, or what's his face who does the voice of Groot. I can never remember his name. Cooper, whatever it is.
Thought gaze. I'm talking about the fact that not you guys in the chat. I'm talking about the fact that when you see the chatter online, when you see the chatter on Facebook groups and Twitter and everywhere else, they have this Pollyanna attitude towards what's possible and what should be, brought to the screen. And, I'm sure in the back of their mind somewhere, they think Harrison Ford and people like him are immortal and they'll be, able to be around forever. It's a very weird thing that goes on. But it is happening in the chatter. Fans can get real glassy, starry-eyed about this kind of stuff.
Yeah. What's funny is a lot of the people that are probably screaming ageism too are a lot of the ones out there who are always picking on old white guys. So
right, yeah.
Oh, Matt wants me to check my DMs. I don't see a problem with Matt hopping in here for a little bit. Do you guys have a problem?
No,
I'm fine with that. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll send you the link, Matt, and here we go. So we get to ask him a little bit on his take on this. Matt, as you may remember, last week was the one that Mangold decided to take his ire out on. He's just like, fuck you. Why are you saying this about my movie?
How fun is it that we're kind of like, well, we're not right in the middle of it. We're certainly peripheral when we've been like...
We're adjunct to, in the words of Amy Pascal.
Yeah. Madeline's Id says, I respect Harrison Ford, but there's a point at which you're asking him to deny his dignity. You go to an 80-year-old for wisdom, not action.
And here he is, folks. Matt.
Point.
Matt, meet Michael. Michael, meet Matt.
Matt, how are you?
Doing good. Is my mic turned around?
Yes, you're right.
Yes, yeah, it's working fine. And Peter Hahn also says, Matt the Mangold Slayer.
I feel bad for the guy. Indiana Jones, it's a big franchise, and to have this happen, it's disastrous. Although, in fairness, Predator had a similar situation where they had to pause for 6 weeks, and it actually gave John McTiernan time to kind of rejigger things and make it better than it was. So I'm hoping
that was Jean-Claude Van Damme's fault.
Well, actually, I think Schwarzenegger was getting married, so they had to
and they they wanted to redo the costume and stuff too.
Yeah. So I'm hoping
for the best though, but
yeah, I'm hoping that this is a blessing in disguise for the production, where it might give Mangold time to kind of fight off Kathleen Kennedy in her notes or something like that. So when I made my tweet about Harrison Ford's age, where I stated he's 78 years old, I was coming at it from a believability standpoint, where it's can a 78-year-old actually, be believable, from an audience's point of view, doing all of the action stuff that Indy has to do. And now, the whole aspect of he got seriously injured because of his age doing this stuff that he shouldn't have been doing. So I feel it's one of those few times where I feel bad about being right.
Yeah, that's the point. And as I saw someone point out here on Twitter, someone made I don't see who it was exactly. Oh yeah, no, Adam at FKNRDCLS. Big yourself up if you're in the chat. In reference to 6 weeks delay, says yes, coincidentally, the average time it takes to heal a broken bone.
Yeah, I'm wondering if he really messed up his shoulder, if it was a fracture or something like that. because he broke his leg on The Force Awakens, didn't he? They had to, like,
Yeah, he did. I mean,
Yeah,
Harrison Ford, he has a long and proud tradition of bone breaks.
He just wants the medicinal weed.
Well, he's never had a problem getting that. But it's like in a movie this big, and I think that someone put forth the scenario that the plan is to like shoot the movie with Ford and then de-age him. I think if it gets to the point where it's clear that he just can't do it, they may bring in someone like Anthony Ingruber and just like CGI Harrison Ford's face over him or something, rather than like just kill the movie, because I mean Disney wouldn't shutter this movie even if they lost Ford. They've invested too much into it already, and it's guaranteed to make money. So as long as they can kind of keep the budget under control, I think that they'll probably go forward with it.
I just can't imagine what savings they would have with the CGI over Anthony Gruber's face. What do they have to do? Like click 2 mouse clicks and they're done? Like there's hardly any work that has to be done there.
Yeah, I mean, the closer they can get to
right,
that type of thing, the more money they'll save. So,
which to me is that smoking gun for why don't you just explore the idea of having a guy like Gruber, groomed to take over the role? Like
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And stay far away from the guy they used in Solo, Alden Ehrenreich. Was that his name?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, well, although they probably still have him under contract, so they might just bring him in to save money too.
Yeah, but they don't. Yeah, but they don't have to do anything with that contract. They can just like allow it to expire and do something better. Of course, would Kathleen Kennedy allow that? I mean, she was the one that didn't want Ingruber in the first place. That went with Ehrenreich.
What a mistake! What a mistake!
What a mistake at Jamaica.
Yeah.
Well, it's a long line of mistakes from Kennedy's point of view. I mean, like she's one bad decision after another. And I saw a lot of people kind of defending her, saying like, oh, she produced the first, couple or all the Indiana Jones movies. And it's like, yeah, she did, but she was on the logistical end of things. She didn't have a say in the.
Yeah, she was the one bringing Steven Spielberg his coffee and founding locations and stuff like that.
Yeah, she didn't have any input into like the script or like what the actors were saying or doing.
She never really has, and that's something we've always pointed out. And people, when they get all defensive about her, including people like Robert Meyer Burnett, where we just got to keep pointing out to them, is like, look, she has been somebody who's produced all these guys' movies that are extremely fucking talented and all this other stuff. And the few times where she hasn't worked with directors who are on that caliber, we've gotten shit like Milk Money.
Yeah. Yeah, and also her involvement with Indiana Jones really didn't become prominent in the credits until Temple of Doom. She's not really part of Raiders, from what I could see when I watched.
She was just a production assistant, I believe.
Yeah.
Also, you have to take into account the fact that a lot of the movies that she has produced outside of Spielberg stuff was with her husband, who's a super producer.
That Marshall. Too, yeah.
And the stuff that she's done solo has just been consistently terrible. So,
what was it? It was like one of these manga adaptations. Was it like Avatar: The Last Airbender, or like some Dragon Ball, or something like some crap like that?
She was one of the producer on, I think, whatever one it was that M. Night Shyamalan directed. Yeah,
that would have been the Avatar: The Last Airbender thing.
Yeah,
never saw it.
It was awful, especially if you're a fan
so
of the
I
cartoon.
heard. Yeah. That's
and there's a couple other movies that are movies I've never even heard of and stuff that she produced, and that's just it. I mean, again, I keep reminding people, like, she was Steven Spielberg's producer for 30 plus years. I mean, it's not hard to get shit done when you're Steven Spielberg's producer.
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand what exactly a producer does. They think that if you're listed as a producer on a movie, that you actually have a lot of say in how the movie turns out. But there are different types of producers. And so you have like the producers who bring like money to the table, and they don't actually have a lot of say in the production, but they financed it so they get a producer credit. You have logistical producers who, like, maybe they brought an actor into the movie, and they're that actor's manager, and so like they got a producer credit or something like that. Or they're the ones responsible for running the set, an associate producer type thing. And then you have the creative producers who are the ones who work with the writers and do stuff. That's why when you see a lot of directors who are also listed as producers, it's because they had a hand in creatively shaping the movie as opposed to just simply directing the movie. Directors who just have the director credit, they tend to just be like, workers for hire, where they come on board and they make sure that the movie gets made. And they don't really have a whole lot of say in how the story gets developed, because the story was already developed by the time they came on. So there are varying degrees of producers and producing. And Kathleen Kennedy, for 90% of her career, was tethered to Steven Spielberg, and he was the one making all the creative decisions. And it was her job to make his creativity come to life on the screen by, dealing with the logistical side. So she had absolutely nothing to do with how good movies like Jurassic Park or Indiana Jones were. It was all Steven Spielberg, and she was the one supporting his vision to get it onto the screen. Now, that's not to diminish her contribution to those movies, because without her, Steven Spielberg probably would have had a more difficult time bringing his vision to life. But to give her credit for how good those movies are and how classic they are is just simply wrong, because she had nothing to do with how good they were.
No, but she's gonna have something to do with how bad this one might be.
Well, I'm kind of up in the air on Indy 5, because number one, it's not going to be hard to outdo Indy 4, and also Mangold. He's not one of these directors that she can easily push around. I think Spielberg chose him specifically because he could stand up to Kathleen Kennedy and make some creative decisions that are outside of her purview. So I'm kind of interested to see what Mangold has planned for this. He kind of hinted in our Twitter thread that he's got something big planned for the story, and I think a lot of it is probably like the Martin Scorsese de-aging thing with Harrison Ford, where we're going to be seeing like an 80s version of Indiana Jones played by Ford. But who knows? At this point, we just don't know anything.
Yeah. Also, Ryan Kinnell, hail Ryan, points out, kind of easy to produce when Spielberg is telling you exactly what to do. So, yeah.
And you also had Lucas in that equation, where she would not only worked with Spielberg, but she was also working with George Lucas. So she's had a long history working with these visionary filmmakers, and to give her any credit, I think is a little bit misplaced, because it's just success by association. She didn't really do anything to earn that stuff. And I think Lucas, in choosing her to be his successor for Lucasfilm, kind of thought that she would continue her pattern of just doing the logistical end of things, where she's a good logistical producer. And the fact that she's dived into the creative end is the thing that's caused a lot of problems. So again, questionable decision by Lucas to handpick her to succeed him.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't Spielberg himself that said that Kennedy was only good at interrupting people.
Yeah. We have the audio. We have the audio of him literally saying that she actually was really, really sucky at her job being a personal assistant. She was completely useless at it. But what she was really good at was interrupting others, interjecting her opinion, and making ideas like, well, what if the hero doesn't get the girl, but instead he gets the dog? And that was a quote directly from Steven Spielberg. And what I think he meant by that was that, okay, fine, he's not going to get the dog, but maybe we can do something else. I think that she just said stupid crap, and that stupid crap may have set his mind off in new directions in which he got better ideas. For instance, think back to Dr. House, for those of you that remember that by now vintage series with Hugh Laurie, where he plays like this genius doctor that is able to diagnose all kinds of mysterious tropical diseases and stuff, but he can't do it on his own. He has to have someone to pitch ideas back and forth with. So he has a team to basically come and say random stupid crap to him, because this stupid crap is what's going to get his mind in the right track. And that was my reading of what Steven Spielberg said. He didn't say it in so many words, but this woman, she says so many stupid things. But those stupid things, they give me ideas.
You know who Kathleen Kennedy reminds me of whenever I hear her speak is Kamala Harris. I feel like they're very similar in how they like cackle when
You mean
they
that
say something
Joker
stupid.
laugh? I
Yeah,
haven't heard that.
the Joker laugh. But I mean, like I see so many parallels between Kamala Harris and Kathleen Kennedy, where they were basically they didn't earn their position; they were put there by people who have a different agenda, and now that they're in a position of power, they're doing all types of shady stuff. So. But
it's also a corporate thing too. It's a corporate culture attitude that a lot of people take on, a corporate personality type, like you were describing, where it's a lot of positioning and a lot of posturing and a lot of
well, that's Hollywood for you.
Yeah, it's Hollywood, but it's every corporate system. Hollywood just happening to be the most high profile version of that. But yeah.
Yeah, the inner workings of Hollywood, as a general movie fan, a lot of people don't understand how the business operates. And so like when they see someone being bad at their job, like Kathleen Kennedy is, they just naturally assume like, oh, she'll get fired because, results, But if you understand the inner workings of the Hollywood system and how insulated a lot of these producers are and how, political contacts and personal relationships and stuff, how they play a role in, the job security. I mean, you had someone like Les Moonves who ran CBS and before that Paramount or Viacom for decades. And the guy was awful in terms of creativity, but he was great at keeping the stock price up. And so as detrimental as he was to like Star Trek and bunch of these other properties, he was also, someone who the board of directors loved and protected up until he got Me Too'd. So, like Hollywood has this like kind of built-in security system for a lot of these like really bad creative actor or, like executives who were in town. And, Andre and Tom, back around the time that the Sony leaks happened and, their channel was blowing up. And that's when I discovered them because I was obsessed with Ghostbusters 2016.
At the time, it was me. Tom came in later.
Yeah.
So
like, when they were going through those Sony emails, you got some like deep like insight into how the inner workings of the studio system operates. And it's mind-boggling how stupid it is.
Yeah, there's no Machiavellian scheming going on there. At least there are maybe for some, but certainly not the ones whose emails we went into. There was nothing Machiavellian going on there, just sheer and utter hubris.
But it does bring up a good point, which is how do people like Kennedy and Tom Rothman, as another example, continue to get hired and get put on projects and get put in charge and be given responsibility for a lot of these decisions after their track record in a very short amount of time is just a trail of wreckage.
Well, being politicians, and even then you have to be aligned with the right people, isn't it, Toge and Matt?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the CEO's thing is that it's a political position just as much as it is a monetary position. So, when you have a situation where like a CEO of a big Hollywood studio might be making like bad creative decisions in terms of the movies they greenlight or where their money is allocated, if they have the right kind of connections among the board, they're pretty much protected. And also you have to take into account that Hollywood's really good at shifting blame away from the people at the top. So you have these scapegoat situations where people get fired or blamed for failures that actually weren't their own. And a lot of careers have been ruined in that way. So it's just one of those things where, people like Amy Pascal and Tim Rothman and stuff like that, they're very good at self-preservation. And even once Amy Pascal got, booted out of the top spot, like she's still at Sony working as a producer because she used to be the boss there. She got all types of support connections there. And that's why she's able to still continue working. So, even if Kathleen Kennedy were to be displaced, she'd be failing upwards. Like she'd probably take Alan Horn's job when he retires, and then like she'd be in charge of all the movies of Disney. So it goes from bad to worse on that one.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure about exactly that, but yeah, your overall point I'm in complete agreement with. But gentlemen, we have a couple of super chats that we're going to go through, so we hear what you all have to say about this topic before we move on to the next, namely the lovely Mrs. Headland. Before then, Mark Whiteners wonders, Andre, any update on the editorial on the Snyder Cut Forbes article? Next week, maybe? Just been busy. So let's see next week. And then he also points out, also, Ford is 80. Time for new adventures with a new actor.
Amen.
And then let's see what more we can bring up on screen here before we get back into the classics. There is nothing more we can get up on screen. So then we go back to the classics. And in the classics, we have, let's see here, Master Clockwork, who says, know what Ford stands for? Fix or repair daily. Dark King wonders, can we replace KK with a stunt double? Oh, we should be so lucky. STR Red Wolf says, 6-week shutdown sounds more like the set was damaged or declared unsafe. I doubt this was just a shoulder injury with Ford. Well, actually, as pointed out earlier, 6 weeks, that's the average time a serious bone or ligament, actually not that serious, but a normal bone or ligament injury will typically require 6 weeks to heal. So don't see anything suspicious about that. Daryl Brewer says for $15, thank you so much. I was under the impression that Crystal Skull was setting up the passing of the torch of the Indiana character to his quote-unquote son. Is there any indication that that is the case with this? Yeah, no, I don't think so. Michael, do you think that we will be seeing Indy's son again? That they'll continue what they kind of set up before they pulled back with him taking over?
I honestly don't think so. I think they're backing off of that the way they initially tried to back off the prequels when they bought Lucasfilm. My impression of that is that Shia LaBeouf's cachet in Hollywood has turned sour, and they don't want to have anything to do with that, and they're just going to ride right past that. From everything I've been able to discover, I don't think Karen Allen's in this movie either. So I think they're circumventing that whole plot point and just, trying to find something else to hang on.
Yeah, Shia LaBeouf kind of tanked his own career, and so I don't think anyone particularly wants to work with him right now.
Shia's career went LaPoof.
That's true.
And Matt, you have to get going, I know, but thank you for dropping in.
Well, thanks for having me. I couldn't believe it when I saw the story today that yesterday it was like, oh, he got injured. I was like, well, I hope he's okay, but it doesn't sound that serious. And then today it's like, oh, it's more serious than we thought, and it's going to be like a 6-week hiatus on the movie. And I was just like, ooh, that does not bode well. And a lot of people were DMing me and tagging me and stuff on Twitter, and kind of celebrating that I was right. And I feel bad for being right on this one, because I really do want a good Indiana Jones movie, especially after the fourth one. And this is the risk that you run when you take these old men and put them in action scenarios. I mean, men half of Harrison Ford's age get injured doing fight scenes for movies and stuff like that. So, I mean, didn't on the last Mission Impossible movie, didn't Tom Cruise get injured?
He broke his ankle or something like that. They even released the footage to show what a badass he is.
Yeah, I mean, and he's what, in his late 50s, early 60s, something like that?
No, it's still his 50s, I think. Late 50s, I think.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. But anyway, he's also at the point where he can still be tough. He's still athletic. He's still strong, all of those things. But at the same time, he's not going to heal the way that he once did.
Yeah, like at a certain point when you hit like a certain age, you have to step back from the leading man role and become like a supporting actor if you want to continue to work or something like that. You know, you saw that all the time with like the actors from like the 60s and 70s where they kind of like gone to like more like mentorship roles or supporting roles or what have you, or even villains at a certain point. But you know, to have like 80-year-old men doing action star roles is a really bad idea, and it will probably never be a good idea unless our life expectancy doubles sometime down the line. So
it's a good idea if you're Stallone. I mean, he's shown that he can do it, but yeah, even he has
how much HGH has he done? You know, keep those bones strong.
Yeah, I better not quit it now. Let's say.
Yeah. I love Stallone though, but although now he's doing CG characters like King Shark and stuff, so
which is, you know, that's a great thing to do. I don't know how everybody felt about, you know, the 5th Rambo. Melinda and I are huge Rambo fans, but
I love it. I really have come to appreciate it. But sorry, I didn't mean to
Oh
interrupt.
no! I was just saying it was a very confusing entry into the Rambo series, especially after the 4th one had such a great ending.
Was great.
Yeah,
oh my God,
it's the best of them all.
But you can also see that, you know, Stallone is, you know, he's still doing Instagram videos where he's showing how he can work out at, you know, 70, whatever age he is. But I think, you know, he's not doing Rocky anymore. He's not doing Rambo anymore.
Yeah, he's not the one in the ring fighting.
Right.
You know,
right.
He's in the corner. He's taking Paulie's position. So.
Yeah, and I think that works.
Anyway, guys, I got to run, but thanks for having me on. I really appreciate, you know, talking with all you guys, and hopefully somewhere down the line I'll be able to come on more regularly.
Yeah, sounds good. All right,
would be cool. All right,
take care.
Take care of yourself.
Yes. All right. So let's continue with the super chats to hear what you all had to say about Harrison Ford before we move on to what was the original main topic of today. Before we had these breaking news. Commandant VHS also says, "Don't trust Lucas on recasting Indy." Shia LaBeouf. So others that. Oh, and then we actually had a super
Shia
chat.
was more Steven than he was George Lucas.
And then we actually got a super chat from Matt, who just left. And he said, "Sometimes I hate being right." So, yeah, he made that point. Michael Miller says, "Maybe they should remake the Flannery series, World War I." Yeah, I mean, there's ample territory there. And so does Harry Partridge Live says the same thing for 10 British pounds. Thank you so much. And he says, "The animated adventures of Indiana Jones by Patrick Schoenmaker trailer proves that the character could absolutely work in animation.
Yeah,
that is where I think they'll go in the post-Harrison interim." What's this thing here? Indiana Jones by Patrick Schoenmaker trailer?
I think that's Michael, the Saturday morning cartoon version one that somebody did a while back that looks really cool.
Michael, you know anything about this?
I do recall a few years ago there was a fan animator who did some amazing animated style artwork for Indiana Jones, and then he did a trailer for a conceptual animated series. Wasn't official; it was a fan made idea. And,
okay.
You know, that's the whole thing about it, though. Even as children, we would sit around wondering, why is there no Indiana Jones Saturday morning cartoon show? Like, I'd never understood that. It was much better than trying to do Ewoks or Star Wars droids. I mean, Indiana Jones would have been a great Saturday morning cartoon, and never happened. They never did it.
Oh, we got Rambo, though, so there's that.
We did get Rambo. We did. Which
Karate Kid, too.
We did, yes, and Karate Kid and RoboCop. We got RoboCop.
Yeah, that's a trilogy right there.
Yep.
And Pablo Papano says, "Don't forget, after buying Lucasfilm, Disney also got Howard the Duck, F. Kathleen." Yeah, they own Howard the Duck now, and they so far have used him really, really well in Guardians of the Galaxy because we got him like 10 seconds or something. Then we'll see if they do any more with him. And Merlin's Id says for $10, "I'm at the point where I'm just ready for Hollywood to crash and burn. I once worked in Hollywood at a very low-level job. I used to love what they did, and now I hate them. I'm numb at this point." Yeah, I don't think you're the only one. And Darius Minchhausen sent a popcorn super sticker. The podcast with Ian, it's too late for me to get up here. Let's see the full name. The podcast with Ian Slater, I was going to try to remember that, says, this may be a sign for this movie not to be made. Yeah, I don't think we're there just yet, but we'll see in 2 months how Harrison Ford is by then. David Rift sent us $5 with no message. Maybe it was redacted by YouTube, but in either event, thank you for your support. And Monkey Not Truck says for £5, my mother had a similar injury to Ford's a few years ago. She's 20 years younger than him, but was away from work for 5 months. Yeah, but do we know exactly what kind of injury he had? If surgery is required, yeah, then we are easily talking about him being out of commission for several months, maybe 6 months to a year. Again, it's going to depend if surgery is required, and if so, how extensive. Tsukiyomi99 says, as someone who is 41 years old, I am starting to feel worn out day by day. Yeah, you got to take care and work out. Eat right and work out, and you'll be able to keep the age in check for many, many more years to come if you're just 41. Just have to take care of yourself.
That is true. That is very true. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah. Of course, you don't have to do like any backflips and get the ambulance being called, but eating healthy, working out, going swimming, lifting weights, that'll go a long way.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Yeah. And then we have Merlin's Id again for another $5. I respect Harrison Ford, but there's a point at which you're asking him to deny his dignity. You got an 80-year-old for wisdom, not action. Yeah, we got that one. And Emperor Billy Ritchie says, you know it's an agenda since they're using the Yahtzees as bad guys again instead of it naturally being the Soviet since it's set in the 60s. And even that is wrong. Michael, I actually have a question for that. As we pointed out before, and Tom was the one that pointed this out to me, in order to be appropriate with the actual age of Harrison Ford, this movie shouldn't have been set in the 60s, but in 1981, the year of the release of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes.
Are you annoyed that we're not getting a movie set in 1981?
Well, it's been harder and harder for me to reconcile as the decades have gone on. Indy looking like Indy, meaning the outfit and everything, in the 60s, 70s, 80s. He becomes an anachronism to everything he's intended to be, and I get that can be perceived as potentially humorous, like they thought it would be in Indiana Jones 4, where Shia LaBeouf is like, what are you, like 80 or something? But it starts to take away and diminish the character. Like I said, I know that it's not a popular thing. One of my best friends disagrees with me on this, but I feel like Indiana Jones is a pulp character that needs to stay in the 30s and 40s, and he needs to be, in his 30s and 40s, like James Bond. I don't see a purpose of having a grumpy old Indy. And I'm not being ageist in saying that. I'm saying if the character is going to be in these films, it needs to take on a Henry Jones type role from Last Crusade or a Rocky Balboa role from Creed. He needs to become, and again, nobody wants to see Indiana Jones get replaced. So if your emotional reaction is that, then you only have two options: either recast the role and keep him in the 30s and 40s, or end the whole franchise. But nobody wants to hear those two options. So we're stuck. It's like...
Yeah, so you don't want to see an elderly Indiana Jones sitting on his lawn telling the neighborhood kids to get off it.
Right. No. Why? Like, nobody wants to see that unless it's some sort of, Funny or Die spoof or something. Nobody wants to see that.
Get off my lawn.
Right. Yeah.
I can actually totally see Harrison Ford in a role like that, where he's holding the gun and telling the kids, "Get off my lawn."
Right.
I
Then
can totally see that. But
it's Gran Torino 2 at that point.
yeah,
You know.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, there are many people who agree with you in the chat. I see.
And everybody's like, "Why are you such a grumpy old man?" He's like, "No, I'm probably going to land there later. They shouldn't be standing there."
Yeah, exactly. They need to watch out because Harrison Ford's plane can crash land anywhere. So.
Yeah, it's like the land shark in Saturday Night Live. It just shows up stage right and bam. Yep.
I'm just a dolphin man.
And then moving on with the super chat, so we get caught up to the next topic here. Then we have Dwayne Olson, who says for $5, thank you so much. Is the broccoli family in the Bond franchise part of the difference in resistance to recasting the Indy role? Different institutional incentives? Tom, this seems to be something that you would know about.
Okay, read. So
I'll repeat the question.
Yeah.
Is the broccoli family in the Bond franchise part of the difference in resistance to recasting the Indy role? Different institutional incentives? I'll put it in the private chat so that you can
different
see and interpret
institutional.
yourself.
Yeah, that's a very intricate question. Difference resistant in recasting any role. They're going to be recasting it soon, as far as I know. So I don't think there's any resistance in recasting Indy. Oh, you mean Indy? Yeah. Oh, you're talking about? Okay, that's where I got confused. Okay, because of the family. I'd love to get Michael's take on this too, but I can see where you're coming from now after rereading the question a few times. Yeah, I think it could be a lot of it's Harrison Ford. I mean, honestly, we don't know what stipulations he has, because we do know, though, the only reason he did Force Awakens was he was promised one more indie film. And at that point, I think they decided they probably weren't going to recast the role anytime soon. And my guess is they'll probably wait till a while after he's no longer with us. Bond is a bit different. But again, I don't think that, like Michael and we've been saying here, I don't think Indiana Jones is above being recast with a younger actor. But Mike, yeah, I'd like to definitely get your side of this, because you're a big fan of both, of course, too. So,
yeah, I know for a fact that people are, currently, in larger and larger droves every day talking about, and I'm on the side of it saying, why didn't they cast Sebastian Stan years ago as a young Luke or not young, but a middle-aged Luke Skywalker, a post Return of the Jedi Luke Skywalker? And I, right now in the chat and other places, I keep hearing that, well, the reason you can't recast Indiana Jones like you can James Bond is because Indiana Jones is like a real character. He's not like a cipher. He's not like an icon, with no, they keep arguing that James Bond is more two-dimensional than Indiana Jones. And I'm going, well, guys, Luke Skywalker makes Indiana Jones by comparison look two-dimensional by extension. Luke Skywalker's character is definitely a character, and everybody wants to see that character still in cinematic adventures, to the point that there's this, rallying cry for Sebastian Stan to take on the role. Indiana Jones, by that measure, is not above the potential for a solid recasting to continue to tell stories in the 30s and 40s. I keep wondering if more of their reticence to it, or more of the realism behind it. Yes, there could be contractual things in there that are keeping it from happening. Sure, I'm not privy to those. But if there aren't, if that's not a situation, then it gets down to, well, we're nervous about telling stories in the 30s and 40s because we don't want to keep telling stories about people fighting fascism. Like, and that's, and iconography that they now find objectionable, and all that kind of stuff. That's another possibility. I don't know.
In terms of the recasting itself, I think that the difference between James Bond and Indiana Jones, at least I would imagine, is that for one thing, you have had James Bond recast several times already. But here's the thing. Sean Connery wasn't the first man to play James Bond. He was the second. There was a TV special, an American TV special of Casino Royale. This is why Casino Royale is like the one dealing with the right stuff, where I forgot who, an American played Jimmy Bond, special agent. That was the first James Bond, because James Bond already existed in numerous books before he ever graced the big screen. So quite a few people already had an internal image of what the character was like, which I think on some level made it more acceptable to the core audience, the ones that have bought the books and really driven the character to accept someone else because they already saw Sean Connery as one interpretation of a character they had already read. Whereas Indiana Jones, you don't have that. He's an original movie character. There's no prior iteration of Indiana Jones. The character and the first actor playing him in the mind of the audience are the same. Indiana Jones is Harrison Ford. James Bond is a book character who happened to be played really, really well by Sean Connery. But Sean Connery is not James Bond in the way that Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones. I think that's part of the reason why many are more resistant towards a recasting there. And you have the same thing with the Han Solo, because the exact same thing applies. Han Solo is Harrison Ford. They recast him. They made a movie that absolutely no one wanted and no one asked for, and it flopped. That was a recasting that really didn't work. And Alden Ehrenreich, he kind of fell off the face of the earth afterwards, didn't he?
Well, yeah, because he couldn't act. I mean, yeah, he was picked out at a party by Steven Spielberg and then suggested to Kathleen Kennedy. And that's, I know he was in Hail Caesar, but apparently he wasn't any good in that film either. So, yeah, I don't know what Hollywood sees in certain people. They get fixated on certain actors every now and then and try and sell them to the public hard. And the public is like, there's all these great actors that they want in movies that Hollywood won't cast. And then Hollywood gets fixated on people like Ehrenreich and Penelope Cruz and people like that and try and put them in a bazillion films, and they never do well. It's weird.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I think that's a big part of the thing, that they know that the audience are going to be much more hesitant about accepting someone else because Harrison Ford is so closely identified with Indiana Jones. That's one thing. And the other is they tried it with Han Solo and it didn't work out.
Then that means they're just going to have to be content in letting this major franchise die. They're going to have to literally give this part of the IP from Lucasfilm up, unless they just decide to really start cranking out video games that have always used a different voice actor instead of Harrison Ford.
Exactly. They could do that, make it a video game franchise. And then many years down the line, you do a new movie, but now as a video game adaptation with the actor from the video games, maybe. That's one way of doing it.
Yeah.
Of introducing it to a whole new audience. Would be like a shame to let it die forever, but in a way, really, Indiana Jones is a trilogy anyway. It was never meant to be anything more than that. He rode into the sunset in 1989. That was meant to be the end. Right. But since then, Hollywood has decided we're not in the business of making original content anymore.
Yeah. That's true. That's what's so funny about, some of the comments I've been seeing where they're like, well, what's so bad about letting Indiana Jones as a franchise end? Can't we get some original ideas? And it's like, the original ideas are not going to miraculously show up simply because Indiana Jones goes on hiatus, because the industry as a whole is not doing original ideas. The industry as a whole is completely looking inward and doing internal projects over and over and over again.
And part of that is the audience's fault. Let's not deny it.
Oh no, absolutely it is. They like those handfuls of Doritos stuffed in their face. Yep.
I mean, just for instance, look at us. Like if we do like a video of, oh, look at this really, really cool upcoming indie movie with a completely original story that you all should check out. We're gonna have 500 views. Whereas if we do something, new adaptation or remake of this, blah blah, it's gonna be 200,000 right away. That's like the difference.
Oh yeah,
that's the audience.
Every time I do a video that's about Star Wars something, it'll get 20 to 40% more views in the first 36 hours than anything else. It doesn't matter how potentially funny or interesting or entertaining that video is on its own. If it's not about something that's that recognizable, you lose, potentially 40, 50% of your potential views.
Exactly. And the audience, they know this.
Mm-hmm.
They know this completely.
Yeah.
So and Mycerus also points out that yes, Andre, audiences are willing to accept a much lower standard of writing, remakes, and poor storytelling today, and repetition. Yeah. So part of that is the audience's fault. Like for instance, if Back to the Future hadn't been made in 1985, but had come out today instead, today, when everyone is focused on brands and everything like that, and then comes this original property, it might not have gone any better than any of the other relatively few high-profile original properties. And there are few of them for a reason, because the ones they tried something new with, maybe it was something wrong with their execution, frequently it was, but they didn't work out. And that only tells Hollywood, we're going to stick to what we know, remake this stuff over and over again, because that's what the audience buys for. And then you're in like a vicious circle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And here's actually one we can get up on screen right away. Regarding Indy 5, this monster should have been offed in the crib when Steven Spielberg balked at directing. This is going to be bad. Well, here's the thing, though. Let's just imagine for a moment that Stephen Mangold actually has a good idea here. Stephen Mangold is a good director, even if he doesn't do himself any favors on Twitter. And Steven Spielberg, he was all over Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. It didn't help that movie. But I agree with your overall point. But
well, yeah, I agree with you, Andre. I mean, I think a lot of us would agree with that Spielberg, Lucas, and Ford coming back together was not a magic formula that saved Kingdom of the Crystal Skull one iota.
It wasn't. It would have been better off if that one had, never gotten out of the crib. Mm-hmm. If the franchise really had stayed or ended with Disney, with Indy riding into the sunset in 1989, would have been the better ending.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then some more classic super chats before we get into Leslie Headland that you all look forward to. Let's see. Mecha J says, if Mangold was upset about what happened, the last thing he needed to do is be on social media and attack someone who had legitimate concerns. Yeah, I agree that that's the last thing to do. But you know what? When you are really, really under pressure, which I'm sure he was there at the time, he's not going to think logically. Like, logic goes out the window, and you think emotionally. And that's when mistakes are made. Which is why he should really go through a publicist before tweeting anything.
I was shocked to see him do that to such a small channel, on top of everything that's happened in the past few months with social media, and especially all the new policies at Disney that they've been talking about. I'm really shocked that he went out there and started swinging.
And here's the thing, he didn't even know it was such a small channel because Matt didn't even link to it.
I was reading I read the whole series of events and, from the original tweet. It was really, really strange to see that director get that worked up about something where the guy wasn't even taking a swipe at him. He was just speculating on the viability of the film from certain factors. And this guy just really got bent out of shape. And yeah, it doesn't bode well for the production as a whole.
Yeah, well, hopefully he still had like a great story in hand, because again, I still hope for the best here. I hope for a movie that's gonna be a high note, so that we can all forget that the Kingdom of Crystal Skulls ever happened. That this can be like the Logan to the franchise, and I mean that in the best possible way. If we get that, then fine, perfect. I'm just worried about the prospect of getting that, but still, we shouldn't wish for anything other than that. But yeah, Mangold's Twitter meltdown. It's not going to do the movies any favors. Just like the reputation that's going to be attached to it. It'll never live that down.
Yep.
And Marilyn's Id points out for another $2. Thank you so much. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doomed franchise. Well, Dash D's says for 10 Canadian dollars, I see it as a cultural issue in North America. We don't treat our elders very well, and more as a competence. We could all learn from our native friends and learn respect and how to honor them. Hi, Retro.
Well, I appreciate the hello. Thank you.
Yeah. And yeah, no, maybe a good point. I can't comment on that, not being in mainland US myself, but I'm sure you have, or in North America, since you're also in Canada, but I'll take your word for it. Rambam 3000 says for £5, I'd love to see a new indie movie, but at almost 80, Ford should be playing the patriarch or the mentor, not running around the jungle or wherever. Well, here's the thing, maybe he will be the mentor. Maybe it will be, what's her face again? Phoebe Waller-Bridge that does most of the running around in the jungle. We'll just have to wait and see. And Marilyn's Id also points out Kathleen Kennedy is the Yoko Ono of movies. Dark King says for $5 Disney has a plan for Indy 6. It involves freezing Harrison Ford in carbonite, followed by outsourcing to the Kaminoans for clones. Yeah, I'm sure they would wish that if they had the opportunity. And Pilgrim Media wonders, if Miss Kennedy broke a hip, would you be sad? Well, I certainly wouldn't wish it upon her. Like everyone, like let's keep it professional and dislike her for what she has done, but refrain from any speculating or thoughts or anything like that of any kind of like bodily injury. And if it were to happen, I would wish her a speedy recovery, as I hope everyone else would as well. And that maybe she would take that time to reflect and maybe leave branded properties alone. But yeah. The DCV Titan sent us $2 Canadian, but the message has been redacted. But thank you so much anyway. Culture Casino says, enough of the feeble old guy story. Give us some giant head lady story. Yeah, we're about to get into the giant head lady right away now. And Jonathan Jimenos says for 75 Uruguayan pesos. Muchas gracias. I'm very worried about the quality of Indy 5. I really want this to be a great indie film. But on the other hand, I wish that the movie flop. Well, let's wait and see how it turns out. If it turns out bad, then we can all wish it will flop. And until then, let's hope for the best. And then just a couple of more before we get into Leslie Headland. Master Clockwork says, this crap is why I don't associate characters with a specific actor. The character is the character and the actor is the actor. Just get good actors. Panzerkrog says for $10, thank you so much. Regarding Indy 5, this monster should have been killed in the... Oh yeah, no, we got this one already. And Gran Wasu 42 says for €30. Thank you so much. Something unrelated to today's topic. What a perfect Zorro watch-along it was yesterday. I came late and did watch it today again. Take my money and looking forward to the next one. Oh yeah, thank you. Glad you enjoyed it. For those wondering what Gran Wasu 42 is talking about, head on over to Midnight's Edge Espanol. There yesterday, we did a live watch party of the original Zorro movie. That would be The Mark of Zorro from 1920. You will also find that movie itself in the absolute best version with the best music, also on Midnight's Edge Espanol, with English title cards and everything. So you can see both the movie and the watch party on Midnight's Edge Espanol and watch them together, hear our commentary to appreciate just what a masterpiece of a movie that is. I mean, I'm serious. That movie can sit right next to Citizen Kane. It is that good. Michael, have you seen The Mark of Zorro from 1920?
Well, it's funny you bring that up because I just got done screening for myself the first time Douglas Fairbanks, who played Zorro in that film. I got done watching his 1922 Robin Hood silent epic.
Nice.
So I have been planning to go back and watch his Mark of Zorro, which I saw many, many years ago when I was watching a bunch of stuff that was Zorro related for some articles I was writing for the Raider.net about influences of Indiana Jones, and I was specifically watching the Zorro movie serials of the 40s, Zorro Rides Again and Zorro's Fighting Legion. So I did watch it then, but I wouldn't want to comment on it now because that's been 20 years ago, and I need to revisit it. But from what I recall, it was an amazing movie, and Douglas Fairbanks was like the Jackie Chan of his day. And as from what I've seen in his Robin Hood film, I'm very excited to revisit that one.
Yeah, you totally should. And you have the perfect opportunity then on Midnight's Edge Espanol. And the stunts in that thing are amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, they would be amazing for Jackie Chan in his prime.
Yep.
Let alone what was filmed in camera. I mean, I wonder how many people must have died making stuff like that, because those stunts were freaking amazing.
Yeah, they really were. And when you've got you've got no income tax, you can build these massive sets, and you've got thousands of extras, each getting paid like $1 a day. And I'm not being cynical. I'm saying that's the reality of it. And that's why they were able to pull off all of that stuff. And then when the stars themselves, are at the bleeding edge of filmmaking, and they're like, let's do something to really wow an audience. And you don't have sound as even a conception. You want to visually wow the viewer. And Douglas Fairbanks knew how to do it. I mean, it's like, here's how we do it. I'm going to go do something that's going to risk my life. And if I pull it off, it's going to look great. Let's go. He was an amazing performer. He understood the medium before the rest of us did. Really, really amazing guy.
Yeah, absolutely. So everyone go check that out. And with that, let us get into the next topic at hand, namely the lovely Miss Leslie Headland. Tom, do you have the story ready to bring up? Tom, you're muted.
Not offhand, but I can have it.
Okay, then I can bring it up.
Yeah, if you got
because
it ready.
we have two stories here, because she spoke last week. So let us begin with that first. And that means that we are all going to subject you to, to this lovely picture right here that I remember we also had on Wednesday, and everyone in the audience were thanking us for having that in the background for so long. So now we have it. We now have it back again. And Michael, of course, you are familiar with this story. This is an interview from the AV Club. Do you want to take us through the highlights of what she said there?
The highlights of what she said, from everything I read, was that she's very proud of the fact that she's hiring writers for the Acolyte and for her Star Wars projects that have never even seen Star Wars. That these are people who, don't have any knowledge of any of the universe and have to be shown the original trilogy. And then she's reveling in their reactions when they text her back while they're watching it. And she's like, I want people in the writer's room that don't understand all this terminology and, look at things with fresh eyes, quote unquote. And my reaction to this when I was reading it was, there's really only one time I can think of where that strategy worked. And it wasn't even a strategy. It just happened to fall out that way. And it was when they were scrambling around trying to find a director for Star Trek II. And everybody since then has hung on this idea that, well, it's good to have somebody that's not familiar with the property and looks at it with fresh eyes. It's like, well, yeah, Nicholas Meyer's case, you lucked out. But how often has that been working for you since? And it is that same corporate mentality of, don't assign people to projects where they know stuff about this. It's this way in the toy industry. It's this way in retail. They always keep the employees who are interested in a thing as far away from that thing as possible, and put them in something they're not interested in, and take the people that would have been interested in that and bring them over to the area where you wanted to be. And it makes no sense at all. And yet they pride themselves on it. They actually think, oh, this is a good way to be. And the other reaction that I had upon reading it was, I did an audit real quick of all the different Star Wars directors. And I realized that the real Star Wars fans who were brought on as directors, not including Josh Trank, he's a separate case, but the ones who were fans were all just fired. Gareth Edwards was sidelined. Colin Trevorrow was fired. Lord and Miller were fired. And yet the guys like Rian Johnson, who didn't even like Star Wars and trolled it, or J.J. Abrams, who just likes to posture like he's a fan of everything, but he's really just a wannabe Chad that doesn't know, his ass from his elbow when it comes to these franchises and fandoms. They're the ones that get the green light to just do this stuff. Now, Jon Favreau, he's a clear fan of Star Wars, but he's been thankfully granted separation from Kathleen Kennedy's decision making. So he's kind of an outlier in that respect. But yeah, this whole attitude of, I pride myself on hiring people who don't know anything about what we're working on. It's like, would you hire people to be plumbers that didn't know how to, make pipes and seal up joints? And I mean, this is not something to brag about in creativity.
Yeah, no, you want a plumber that has fresh eyes, that he can take a completely new way of looking at the problem of a blocked pipe and find a new inventive way of dealing with it.
Yeah, but see, great point, because that's the problem, is that if you don't have people who know this stuff and love it and respect it, a healthy respect with also healthy storytelling chops, you're not going to create great new stories. You're just going to create franchise breaking, debacles. And that's what we've been seeing with Disney Lucasfilm. I love this idea that, well, if you hire fans, they're just going to look inward all the time and they're not going to come up with anything innovative. It's like, right, because the people you're hiring are doing such a bang up job. Why don't you just try? Think about it. Jon Favreau, clearly a legacy Star Wars fan, loving working on this. He's bringing a lot into The Mandalorian for a lot of fans. Same thing I truly believe with Gareth Edwards, who did Rogue One. Even when he was playing nice with Disney after he got sidelined for Tony Gilroy, Gareth Edwards is the guy in reshoots that came up with the Darth Vader hallway sequence.
Yeah.
So the fans know what needs to be done.
Yeah. I'd like to point out what Script Doctor says here, who of course knows this. It's a desperate attempt to avoid more of the same with IP. Get fresh eyes, and you'll get something new. Get fans, and you'll get the same stories over and over. That's the mentality. And of course, as you say, Michael, that mentality right there, what has it led to? It's led to you getting people that know nothing about the brand, and if anything, has contempt for it,
right,
and seem to be completely, utterly ruining it. Also, Troy Pacelli says, for $5, the "with fresh eyes" argument only stands up for people who understand basic story and film craft first. Also, he loves Retroblasting. So do we. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's nice.
you want to get the same thing over and over again? Keep hiring people that don't know anything about this property. That's how we got Force Awakens, where they go, "What's Star Wars? Oh, it's the Wookiee guy and the Millennium Falcon and lightsabers and pew 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 and a Death Star." Oh man, like that's more of the same.
Yeah, the beauty, I really like that you brought up Nicholas Meyer, because he's like also Tom and myself's favorite example there, because he was not a fan.
Right.
He really wasn't.
Right.
But he was a filmmaker. He's a storyteller.
Yes.
So he did the research. He was smart enough to understand that, okay, I'm going to do research. I'm going to understand what this story is. I'm going to understand what makes it tick. And in so doing, he understood what's appealing about it. And then he could take it to a new direction while preserving what made it appealing in the first place.
Right.
You don't have to be a fan. You just have to be good. Another example, because Michael, I sent you that script for Oliver Stone's Conan.
Yes.
And Oliver Stone, he was like something of a fan, but he wasn't a huge fan. But he read all the books and he got taken with them. He kind of got the gist of it. He didn't understand it completely, but he got it enough that he was able to write a fairly incredible script that John Milius, in my opinion, made worse.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any problem with the original idea for Conan and it as a film, and it's a shame that it kind of degenerated a little bit when John Milius took over. I think that somehow it managed to stay on its feet as a project.
Because John Milius, he had a vision too. It was just a different. So it was something else. It was less Conan and more Milius, but it was so much Milius that it was still able to stand on its feet. So it was like the same thing. He was the furthest thing from a fan, but still he was able to make something that could stand on its own feet. And that seems to be what they're trying to go for in hiring all of these people that explicitly aren't fans. But what I think they get wrong is that they don't care about understanding what made this appealing in the first place.
Right.
Instead, you seem to have this mentality, and this comes from the top. This comes from the Kathleen Kennedy in the case of Star Wars, and it comes from the Alex Kurtzman in the case of Star Trek, where you have someone on top that makes the decision that all of the existing fans are problematic, and we're going to jettison them, and when we do that, this whole property is going to become safe, and then they're going to be replaced by a new audience that's going to materialize from empty nothingness and outnumber the old guys 1,000 to 1. That seems to be their mentality. And then they bring in these hip new writers that don't understand the first thing about the property, but they come in and they want to be subversive. They come in and they want to destroy it, seemingly. That's certainly the case with Star Wars and Star Trek. You saw that in The Last Jedi. I mean, Rian Johnson was even clear about it. Destroy the past, or bury the past. Kill it if you have to. That was the express goal. Disney had bought Star Wars for $4.05 billion. And what did Kennedy and Rian Johnson do? Well, end the whole thing. Now let's just build something new with the Star Wars name. Great business strategy. Well, that was.
Yeah, it was hubris on a massive level, and it's hubris combined with those corporate reflexes that they die very hard, in meaning they don't die at all. They always fall back on the same tattered corporate culture 101 playbook. Don't let anybody who's actually interested in this work on it. Keep them, and it's like, well, guys, you do know that because Jon Favreau happened to have major clout, that was why he got to work on Mandalorian, and coincidentally, and thank God, he had a massive genuine interest in Star Wars. But if he hadn't been Jon Favreau, even if he'd had the level of interest that he had, you never would have let him touch it. And yet that's your biggest success so far, critically, with the fan base. But they don't make that connection. They don't put it together.
I also see that there are some people in the audience that are unhappy with us having the picture from this article here in the background. So don't worry, we'll find something else more appropriate. So just give me 1 second, and we'll find something else appropriate here. But in the meantime, just carry on with what you feel is the problem. What should they do? Here we go.
What they should do with Headland's project. I mean, there's a lot of scuttle right now saying that this is just more empty promotion and keeping Star Wars and Lucasfilm in the press, but that they don't think this is ever going to see the light of day, much like Rian Johnson's trilogy. I would like to think that's the case, because from what we've seen of the High Republic so far, the High Republic material has been rather dead on arrival, and such is the case with this. I don't want to say, I can't imagine this getting to the screen or getting to a green light, meaning in front of lenses, because worse stuff has gotten in front of lenses in cinema history. With Kathleen once again being rumored to almost being gone or something like that, and her being Kathleen Kennedy's, right-hand person now, her favorite.
Yeah, the Sith always operate in two. Remember that.
Yeah, but I wonder if she goes, will they be able to, exit Leslie Headland's stage left that quickly as well, or will they be too late and she's at least got one project to launch? I don't know.
I think the series is probably going to happen. I think that it's too far in motion to be stopped. I think the money, everything has already been allocated to it. Tom, isn't that right? Like Kathleen Kennedy, she has the power to greenlight series and stuff like that. So she at least can get the ball rolling and invest so much money in it.
Basically, yeah, that's what I've been told, is she can greenlit TV series and all this other stuff all day long till she's blue in the face. But when it comes to a movie, she's got to go through Alan Horn and what used to be Bob Iger, and I'm assuming Bob Chapek now, but still.
There's two new people. There's two new people that are in charge of movies and everything. But she may still be able to force through the Acolyte series. And that's kind of what we got from this interview, how she's talking about assembling the writer's room. And of course, maybe Chapek can go in and he can kill it before filming begins, because apparently it's not going to film for another year, and a lot can happen between now and a year before filming. Many series in history have been in development and getting killed a year or in the span between like being written and the year before filming. A lot can happen in that time frame. So I'm not convinced that it's going to end up getting made. If anything, I would actually, because the thing is, it's going to tie into the High Republic, and the High Republic is pretty much dead on arrival, isn't it?
I think it is. I mean,
as far as I can tell, yeah.
Between Into the Dark and that rock, and I mean, you only hear about these projects getting announced. I never see anything once they've launched about how they're doing or how the fans have embraced them, like I do The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian is constantly in my news feed, even though I don't even watch the show. It's constantly in my news feed. And again, to everyone listening, the only reason I don't watch the show is no hate. I simply don't have Disney Plus. All right. So you can put your pitchforks and torches down. But my point
I don't think you'll get much of that here.
Yeah. But my point in saying that is, like, with that show, not only were we inundated with news while it was being developed, we were then inundated with news throughout its run, practically episode by episode. All these news sites are talking about it. And yet with High Republic, it's like, hey, there's this book coming out. Oh, they made a character that's a rock. Oh, there's a guy named Ram Jamaram, who they then changed that name at the last minute, you notice. They switched a few consonants around.
They didn't change the name of Leox Gayassi.
No, they didn't do that. You're right. But then after that, you don't hear about how to do it launch, how the news outlets don't cover that. They abandon it. There's no interest in it at that point. Now with this obviously being filmed entertainment, it might have a few more media impression legs if it ever comes to the screen. But I don't think people care about the High Republic, because the premise statement is this is about the end of the High Republic and the beginnings of the rise of the dark side. It's like, well, yeah, they called it the Old Republic in the prequels, but the Old Republic was the same story. It was about the old government and how the dark side got the better of everybody. So what's the difference here? You got to give me something to differentiate this. And right now, I'm not seeing a lot that differentiates it, aside from a lot of unfamiliar characters that are being conceived of by a whole team of writers that are being touted as, we don't know anything about Star Wars. Oh, and by the way, one of them is a rock. It's like this equation's not adding up to something that seems enjoyable.
Yeah, and the Rock apparently is the best character, which is not a compliment of the Rock, rather it's a conviction of everyone else.
Right. Yeah, they're not promoting High Republic. This is the first news story I've seen about the High Republic in months. And of course it's about, talking about how they're still out of touch at the creative level with everything. And I saw this in the 90s with Tales of the Jedi for Dark Horse Comics. That was a stronger set of stories than this is turning out to be. However, Tales of the Jedi as a series did not ever transcend its medium and become a thing in filmed media or any other. It stayed where it was. It had its devoted group of readers, and it stayed where it was, but it hardly represented the majority of Star Wars fans. Nobody hated it because it wasn't affecting original trilogy continuity. It didn't do what the sequel trilogy did. It wasn't riding roughshod over, established, loved series of events or anything. But it also wasn't a lot of people's cup of tea. It was this very weird, esoteric story that was, and I know that Knights of the Old Republic was the closest thing to it becoming mainstream, but it in and of itself was a separate entity from Tales of the Jedi. It was still set in the pre-prequel era of the Old Republic, but it too was apart from Tales of the Jedi. And it was a video game, no less, which means that the fans could interact with it. So that in and of itself is more, it has a greater potential for success when you're dealing with an unfamiliar landscape within an established franchise. It's like, yes, this is unfamiliar territory, but it's a game where you can play, you can go pew pew and one with the lightsabers and do that thing. And so then more people sign on. I played it. I rented it and played it a few times. So.
Yeah, indeed. Tom, anything you want to add to that?
Not offhand. I think it's been covered.
Yeah, and then the most recent update as pertains to Leslie Headland. Just give me one more second. I'm on the uptake here, but that's why I took down the replacement picture in between the one you all didn't want. So just give me a second here.
Sure. I'll address this comment from E3. He says, Tales of the Jedi were written by people who understand Star Wars. Yeah, E3. I'm not saying Tales of the Jedi was bad. What I'm saying is Tales of the Jedi had a very niche audience within Star Wars fandom. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And then, this is the most recent update then. It comes from Bounding Into Comics yesterday. And they then post a rumor. Leslie Headland's Star Wars The Acolyte looking for female person of color to lead. And where they have this from is once again Grace Randolph. But hey, it's out there, so we might as well bring it up. And according to Grace Randolph, and again, her Star Wars news have been fairly on the money, so it's worth bringing up. Here's some Star Wars tea for you. The Acolyte is now casting its lead, a female person of color, college age, who is athletic and can do martial arts. Sounds very promising. It will begin filming in London first quarter of 2022, so in another 6 months then. And then Grace Randolph also made another comment here. And then she said, for your information, considering Star Wars has had mostly Caucasian brunette female leads to the point it's becoming a running joke. That's why this show and any other Star Wars content is specifically looking for women of color. I just want to highlight the comment there. Star Wars has had mostly Caucasian brunette female leads to the point it's become a running joke. I just wanted to highlight that comment. Why do you think Star Wars for the past 5 years, actually for the past 6 years, or for as long as Kathleen Kennedy has been there, has been having female brunette leads?
Well, part of it I've been told is because she's projecting herself into her material.
There's no part of it. That's it. It's self-insert.
Okay.
That's the end of the story. That's why.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Self-inserts.
And apparently she would really like to be British if she had her druthers. Because
Evidently.
Yeah.
She seems like someone who thinks that being British automatically means that you are more classy. So she probably grew up watching Yes Minister or something. I don't blame her for that. That's one of the best series ever made. But there's plenty people in Britain that aren't in the upper echelons of society. So yeah. I just thought that comment was interesting to highlight. But let's just take these rumors then for a face value. We know that she is looking for people who explicitly aren't fans of Star Wars, so that they can react to it for the first time and then share what they felt, probably laugh at how stupid it was, and now we're going to do better. And then they're moving a little bit away from the Kathleen Kennedy self-insert as the lead, and it's set in the High Republic, meaning it's a tie-in with the Old Republic. And again, if Miss Gracie Randolph is to be believed, it's set to film in Q1 2022 in London, meaning 6 months from now. How sure are we this is going to happen? And how excited are we for it?
Tom, you want to take this one?
Excited for Leslie Headland Star Wars. About as excited as I would be if I was getting a root canal and a prostate exam at the same time.
So in both ends. Okay.
Yeah, this is what we call a rhetorical question.
Right. Yeah. I'm not thrilled by this for the reasons I outlined before. I do think that Tales of the Jedi was a superior effort, but it also didn't interest me in the 90s. And again, a superior effort, a good series of stories. The only thing High Republic might do is compel me to go get all those ones I never read in the 90s and read those instead, which is kind of how the sequel trilogy has inspired a lot of people I know to go read the Timothy Zahn book trilogy from 1992 through 94 or whatever it was. Yeah, it might actually compel me to go back and read older material.
Well, there's that. It'll go back and get people to discover back when they were actually good, which of course doesn't help with their pumping millions upon millions in today, but hey, there's something.
Yep.
I hope for the future, I guess. With that, I want to run through a couple of more super chats here to see how excited you all are for Leslie Headland Star Wars that she keeps on threatening us with in public now. Just have to see exactly where. Oh, there we were. Freakadelic says for $5. Retroblasting. Have you done a video on the phenomenon on the generation that grew up watching the prequels and think they're good but flawed?
I have a lot of friends in the social media space who are of that generation. We've talked about it sort of, in conversations that weren't on, live stream or anything like that. I haven't done a video about it yet, though. No.
Well, there you go. And Marilyn's id says, in response to Dash D's, I agree and would add that this is a holdover from the hippie generation when it comes to disrespecting your elders. Yeah, the hippies were the worst, weren't they, as it turned out? Infinity Flare sent us $2, but there's no message. It seems to be redacted, but thank you for the support.
People, they're hippies.
Sorry,
exactly.
Late reaction.
Yeah. And Lou DiMarzo says for $9.99. Thank you so much. I love the Back to the Future trilogy and watch it strictly to see Kathleen Kennedy's name in the credits. Thank you, KK. Without you, those movies would be trash. Some people actually believe that. Which is funny, but yeah.
yeah, that's a very counterintuitive bit of logic there.
I do have a hunch that Lou is probably being sarcastic, but there are some people out there, some desperate followers that see themselves as a cross between Batman and Jesus, who decide that that person's a victim. I'm going to white knight for them anything I can. I probably would feel something like that. Reminds everyone that Iconocon is from July 7th to 11th in 2021. So in a little over 2 weeks. And also Midnight's Edge has a panel on the 9th of Sword and Sorcery. And Michael, you'll be there, won't you?
I will be there. I will be very happily there. Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be awesome. I'll send you some show notes and everything like that before long here.
Great.
And Marilyn's id, he also isn't impressed with Leslie's head shape. And Troy Pacelli says for $5, the with fresh eyes argument only stands up for people who understand basic story and film craft first. So yeah, we got this one. And Marilyn said he also has more puns about Leslie's head shape. I would like to read them, but that would be in poor taste. Let us not shame someone for something they can't do anything with. But thank you for the support. And Augie Ben Doggy says, these hacks are YA at best. Or at worst, whatever the case may be. And STR Red Wolf says, Leslie Headland's picture is objectionable. I've seen worse in high school in person. Well, I'm sure we all have. And SJ Shady 0169 says, I think the question we are all wondering is, when are we getting dinosaurs? Star Wars Jurassic Park crossover. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if you're getting some dinosaurs in the Acolyte, because remember, one of the things that was on that blackboard that went into the High Republic, diversity and dinosaurs.
Yep, I remember seeing that going, where did they get the idea of dinosaurs? That's people that have never seen Star Wars and they watched Attack of the Clones. And they're like, oh, look at all the dinosaurs in the arena. And it's those aren't really dinosaurs, but okay, whatever.
Yeah, probably. And I wouldn't be surprised if they completely misunderstand everything and they looked at the Bantas and stuff, probably thought they were dinosaurs as well.
Yeah. They just don't. Again, she brings it out in that article. She's like, I want people that don't understand the terminology. It's that's how you get the word dinosaur on a whiteboard brainstorm about Star Wars. Exactly.
And also in the special editions where they threw up all that crap in the desert scenes, you had something that looked like a dinosaur in there that the stormtroopers were riding on. They probably looked at that from the special editions and thought, oh, dinosaur! We need dinosaurs. Audiences love dinosaurs. And they all love that in the special editions.
Yeah.
None of them wants to despecialize for that very reason or anything.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, they want to give us more of the exact things that the audience don't want, and why people want the despecialized editions and 77 4K and stuff. So yeah, good going, good understanding of the material and their audience there. But that seems to be what the Headland wants. Find writers who understand nothing about what they're supposed to be writing about. And just look at the success they've had with that so far, or head on over to Star Trek. See what Kurtzman did, how he was able to make every single skilled writer in that room into a complete incompetent.
Yep, it's a killer strategy. It really is a franchise-killing strategy. Just great.
Absolutely. And Deus Sod sent us a Waits super sticker, which may be like a hint to us all to go out and work out. It's always a good idea. And Master Clockwork says, Doug Walker tried to give genuine credit for Who Framed Roger Rabbit to KK. Dude, she was just a money person, for fuck's sake.
Whatever.
Tom, you know this. I'm waiting for this. Needs to trigger you. How involved was Kathleen Kennedy in the success of Roger Rabbit?
She watched it. Her husband was second unit director. Steven Spielberg got that movie made, and Robert Zemeckis directed it. Kathleen Kennedy did about a whole bunch of nothing.
Well, I'm sure she cooked some killer coffee.
Maybe.
Yeah, well, I like Doug Walker for the inspiration that he had in being a YouTuber that I used to watch, and I guess that in some way influenced Midnight's Edge a little bit. But then he did his Conan retrospective, and that just showed me how incredibly freaking lazy the whole thing was. But yeah, that's just my opinion.
Yep, we've all had those moments, haven't we, Andre, where we've put our heart and soul into a retrospective of our own, and then some other channel decides they're going to tackle it and grab onto that gravy train. And it's like, oh, ouch.
Yeah. Here's like the thing that, well, actually, I was happy in that sense because he made his Conan videos long before there was a Midnight's Edge.
Oh.
So the beauty was then when he made his, I was like, dude, he did absolutely no research whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
He just glossed over like, oh, it's nothing like the books, and that was it. I was
wow.
Like, yeah, that was pretty lazy.
yeah, that's a phone in right there.
Yeah. And with that, I think we have all we have to say about Leslie Headland. But you know what else has dropped in the last 24 hours that the chat is talking about? That's the new trailer for Shang-Chi. Did you all have a chance to watch that yet?
I did not know there was a brand new trailer. I saw the original trailer. I didn't know there was a new one. Maybe I'll...
How good a conviction is that of the current state of Marvel? There's a new trailer for a Marvel movie you didn't even know.
Yeah, I mean, that's how much...
Yeah.
That would have been pretty unthinkable like 2 years ago.
They've completely knocked interest out of me to even keep up with their post-Endgame cycle. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And also, there's a trailer for Halloween that I have not seen yet, but I know of it. But there was actually, I'm not going to make you all watch that trailer for Shang-Chi. Honestly, in my opinion, boring CGI fluff and loads of scenes that were intended for the CCP and people of China to be super happy with it, but they're probably going to find them offensive. There was one really cool thing, though. You know who suddenly shows up towards the end of that trailer?
No, who shows up?
Someone we haven't seen since 2008.
Oh,
the
really?
Abomination of Incredible Hulk fame.
Wow. Okay, so he's finally back.
He's finally back, and you know what's even better? I'm a huge fan of The Incredible Hulk, the Edward Norton movie. I really like it. I think it's one of the most underrated movies in the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I wasn't thrilled about was like this dried up zombie look they had on the Abomination. Instead of him having him be like scaly and like reptilian, and it's certainly giving him the ears, he was like a dried up zombie. A huge one, but still like right up zombie. This one here, from what we can see, really looks like it's the proper Abomination with his ears and everything.
Well, I'm glad that he ended up getting some kind of makeover in the 13 years since we've seen him. I mean, that's encouraging, right?
Yeah, so it's going to be cool to see him back again there. So that's actually one reason to look a little bit forward to the movie. Not Shang-Chi. I don't care about Shang-Chi, but just seeing the villain from the Incredible Hulk back again.
Yeah, I just caught the trailer, and
is Tim Roth even supposed to be in it though?
He doesn't have to be. I mean, they didn't get Hugo Weaving back for.
Yeah, but he didn't want to come back.
No, exactly. I don't know if Tim Roth is there, to be honest. I have no idea. And honestly, I don't care. I don't think that he's instrumental for the character at all.
Yeah, and the footage I just saw looks really good. I just watched the trailer on mute, and the footage of the Abomination looks good. I don't know how the rest of the movie will turn out, but that looked good.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm a little bit excited about that. Tom, did you see the trailer for Shang-Chi? Kind of have an idea of the answer, but Tom is muted.
It was all right. It felt very generic for the most part. I mean, I guess the Abomination thing kind of was like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I'm still looking forward to the movie, I guess, but not like on any level like I got to see it opening day.
I think my concern about the film, and again, I know that it's a comic book, so, but I had the same issue with Captain America, the first Avenger, is that when Captain America encounters all of the bad guys, they all have, energy blasters, and they all have, even though it's supposed to be 1943 or whatever, 44. And in this movie, again, as with many of the Marvel films, this is not just specific to Shang-Chi or Captain America, is that all the villains and all the action has to involve, laser glows and glowing items. And I get the 10 rings are supposed to be magical, but like, do all the bad guys he faces, including all the cronies, do they all have to have, little magic energy weapon things? Like even the daggers they throw have these little like pulse lights on them, and then it's like I feel like there's a lot of magitech going on in these Marvel films, and maybe I just remember comic books wrong, but I seem to remember that in comic books a lot of the time superheroes would end up fighting loads of bad guys that were just normal, like they were just cronies of the villain. They didn't all have super gear. Anyway, that's nitpicking, but just an observation.
Yeah, no, it's a fair one. But yeah, as for me, I'm more excited about this movie than I've been before because of the Abomination. And Thanos 2024 says, is it wrong to root for the Abomination? And that's what I'm going to do. Hell, I'd root for him being the real star that goes around smashing the entire movie, and everyone else has to try to unite to take him down. I'd watch that movie. Be much more interested in that than anything else, to be honest. So that's me, and Tom had to drop up for a second there. He's dealing with some Kitty issues. Kitty wanted the microphone, and let's see if Tom can you hear us? Can we? Yeah, we can hear.
I can hear you. Okay, thank God he didn't break something.
Cats are the best, aren't they?
I mean, in our house, we certainly think so, although they can be a real pain in the butt. One always wants to get out. One's always tearing stuff up. One's, always wanting their food. It's a whole thing. It's a world unto itself.
Yeah, indeed. So with that, I don't think there's much else to say about the Shang-Chi trailer. Tom, do we have any other stories on the docket for today? Or Michael, is there any other stories in the news recently that caught your attention?
There haven't been any stories recently that have caught my attention in the movie and TV news space. I have been keeping up with the fan criticism over, of all things, the remapping of Aloy's face in the Horizon sequel. But that's video game news and has nothing to do with our audience here. So, yeah, that's the only other thing I've really been reading up on besides the Leslie Headland stuff and the what do you call it?
Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones. Thank you. Yeah. So Indiana Jones and the measles of de-aging. That one. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And the troubles of 80-year-old men and their shoulder injuries.
Yep.
Yeah, which of course can happen to anyone, but it's of course it's a bigger issue at that age. I mean, a good shoulder injury, you may never recover from that.
Yep.
Well, we have some shuffling going on over at Warner.
I'm not surprised. There's going to be much shuffling there going forward. So, what's this shuffling that you have for us here then?
Says Warner Brothers shuffles fall schedule deck with Dune, Cry Macho, and the Many Saints of Newark. The fall, early winter corridor looking fiercely competitive. Warner Brothers is changing a trio of release dates in order to best position its movies. All of them will still go day and date on HBO Max. I cannot believe.
That shocks me. Dune even?
Yep, just for 31 days, but yes. So
Well,
far,
that doesn't matter. I mean, it only has to be there for one day. That's enough time for that. You know, anyone in the world can, surf shark it. So,
well, yeah, that's the thing is there's still enough time for that to change. But anyway, let me digress and continue here. With MGM United Artists releasing 007 movie No Time to Die on October 8th, Warner will not play legendary Dune in its wake, rather go on October 22nd. So it got moved back, it looks like, a little bit, with the all-star ensemble sci-fi pick based on Frank Herbert's Dune novel. Dune will, I can't read this morning, I need my new glasses. Also released in 3D and IMAX, Dune is making its world premiere in Venice Film Festival, and it will be hitting TIFF, the International Film Festival, I believe that is. Instead, on October 1st, Warner will release the Alan Taylor directed, David Chase produced, co-written Sopranos New Line feature prequel, The Many Saints of Newark. Pick was also recently scheduled for September 24th. Many Saints is the only adult choice on October 1 through 3rd in what is recently shaped up to be a knife war between the Addams Family and Hotel Transylvania 4. Clint Eastwood's Cry Macho, starring the legendary filmmaker star Eduardo Minette and Dwight Yoakam, will move up from October 22nd to September 17th. And it will be up against the Clifford the Big Red Dog movie. So, yeah, there we go. That's the new news. I think the more surprising thing is, oh, my God.
Can you reiterate one more time, when is Dune coming out?
October 22nd.
Still October 22nd, straight to HBO Max.
Yep.
Wow.
Which is strange. I thought that this would be an announcement that it's not.
I did not see that coming. That subverted my expectations.
You're telling me.
Yeah, well. And also, I saw a comment in here on that note. There was someone, I believe it was a countryman of mine, who wondered if, let's see if we can find it here, who wondered if Dune 2 is guaranteed. And the answer to that is no. Dune 2 is the furthest thing in the world from guaranteed. If anything, Dune 2 is hanging by a fairly thin thread. I think there's absolutely a way that we can get a Dune 2, but oh yeah, here we got. It's Erik Runge Madsen who wondered, is Dune 2 guaranteed yet? And nope, it's not guaranteed. And this way, it's actually far less guaranteed. I mean, it better bring a whole hell of a lot of viewers to HBO Max, so that maybe they'll consider changing it to a series and continuing it on HBO Max as a series. Beyond that, a Dune 2 in the same vein of this movie right here, which was frightfully expensive. I don't see that happening. Tom, do you or Michael?
Tom, you want to take this?
Well, I'm with you, Andre. I mean, if it doesn't make the money or at least appear to be successful, no, we're not going to get a Dune 2. And that's why I was confused why they just didn't film both parts at once, a la Lord of the Rings. But, I mean, part of it, I guess, lies in the fact that there is a time jump.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of the reason. I mean, because the star, Timothée Chalamet, he's at an age where 3 years is going to make a huge difference. Where in 3 years from now, the way he looks right now is going to look like a boy.
Well, they already filmed this movie 2 years ago or whatever. So
exactly. So then it's like a 5-year difference. So because here's like the thing that he's that in the first part of Dune he's supposed to be a boy, but then when it comes to fruition and he becomes Muad'Dib, Paul Atreides the myth. By that time he's a man. So I understand the time jump for that reason. But yeah, in this case, it's really going to freaking come back to haunt them that they didn't film the whole thing in one go, Lord of the Rings style.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, very interesting, very surprising, but it'll be interesting to see how this continues. And then we have we have a couple of more super chats. Max Relax sent us a €3 super sticker of like thumbs up guy, and Stephen Otten, he says, let's see if I can bring that up on screen because it's very pertinent. What happened to the story that Warner Brothers will cease all physical media after 2024? I will be willing to see Dune and cry macho on the big screen. Tom, what happened with that story? And Michael, feel free.
Tom, if you know something about this, go right ahead. I have some out-of-date information from several weeks
I've
back.
heard this a couple places, and I have yet to find any place that can confirm this. I've heard this a couple times from people, but like I've not heard Bill Hunt or anybody say anything about it. And unless somebody can send me like a story about it or something, then I can't comment on it because I just don't buy it. Because I would think that they would be one of the last ones to do it. But then again, they did just combine their efforts with Universal going forward for home video. So I mean that it could be possible. But unless they're feeling that could also have been something out of Kalar's mouth that doesn't matter anymore. That's the one thing we're going to see going forward is Kalar made a lot of choices and decisions. And that's why Andre and I are really still surprised that Dune's coming to both HBO Max and theaters at the same time. Yeah. It boggles our minds because that was one of the reasons why this whole thing fell apart. That is one of the reasons why Discovery is coming in to take over Warner Brothers. And one of the main reasons is because Legendary, the company behind this film as well, lost their freaking minds over Godzilla versus Kong, and rightfully so, because they left $1 billion on the table. Not just a couple million, but close to, if not more, like $1 billion. There's no way that movie wouldn't have made $1 billion if all the theaters were open, unless somebody wants to.
Yeah, so to be clear, what that means is that they left out maybe $100 million in pure profits. 100 million that they could spend on blow hookers and home theaters, Bentleys and everything, just gone, left on the table.
See, there was some rumor about it in April, and then there was an immediate follow-up that says, no, Warner Brothers is not ending DVD Blu-ray production in 2022.
Yeah.
And then it says the confusion started a few days earlier when a Twitter user shared screenshots of comments made by noted animation historian Jerry Beck, but interpreted Beck's comments as Warner Brothers was giving up physical media. Yeah, so it's from the context of Beck being cartoon historian. I guess it had something to do with Warner Brothers was going to be prioritizing its historical animation shorts for streaming rather than putting them out on physical media in the future. But this person interpreted that as all physical media for all of their content.
Generally, I have learned to be skeptical of such quote unquote fact checking, because notice what they said. No, it's not true that it's going to happen in 2022. Okay, what about 2024? I would say nothing about that.
Yeah, which I haven't been able to find any evidence so far of that date, but I'm sure the commenter got it from somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. And also, like other such fact checking, typically is only, in my experience, used to invalidate certain arguments and may not hold up very, very well in history. But yeah, I see your point. But no, we'll just have to wait and see. I certainly hope that that physical media will continue forever.
Well,
certainly as a niche format, if nothing else.
I was going to say, I mean, I don't think it's going to go anywhere time soon. And Warner Brothers, they're still releasing 3D Blu-rays.
Right.
I just got my Kong vs. Godzilla 3D Blu-ray to mail yesterday. So it's not like they're still I don't think they're anywhere near that. Yeah.
I mean, I know they have a deal for distribution of their stuff. They're like teamed up with Universal.
Yeah, that's what I brought up earlier, which is funny because, like I pointed out many times, they were the only company during all the time of video that ran on their own. They didn't go through any other distribution companies. I had to deal directly through Warner Brothers. They did everything themselves.
Right.
And for them to do this, that was a bigger like whoa to me than anything, but it makes sense to a point. But at the same time, DVDs and Blu-rays and stuff, I don't think are going anywhere anytime real soon. They're going to try and phase them out. But as we keep pointing out with the streaming stuff, there's a lot of areas that don't have high-speed internet. And the United States notoriously has some of the worst internet in the world, as Andre always points out too.
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. And with that, do we have anything else?
No, that just looks like about all that really came across the transom while we were talking, unless I missed something anyway. No, I think we're pretty well caught up on everything.
Yeah,
at least it looks like.
Cool.
Cool. Michael, I'm curious what you've got coming down the pipe from you over there at Retroblasting, besides the Iconocon, which I'm sure we can talk a little bit about too quick before we leave. But any other videos you're working on right now, or stories?
Yeah, I'm working on a tour of the tour/review of the Fright Zone from Masters of the Universe, the vintage playset.
Nice.
I'm working on a big review of the G.I. Joe Defiant space shuttle complex. I'm writing that up. I've got a big Thundercats retrospective that I'm working on with Lio Convoy reviews that will come out about a month or so after Iconocon. I'm working on a Star Wars Follies installment, hopefully very soon. During Iconocon, I'll be premiering part 1 of my Bionic 6 retrospective. I'm presently working on part 2 of MacGyver, and I'm working on a big history of Robin Hood in film and television. It will be it'll be the most comprehensive Robin Hood film and TV retrospective on YouTube. And I was telling a few friends yesterday, I'm actually scouting locations for that, and I'm in contact with people like the official Robin Hood of Nottingham. He's going to be in the video. My buddies at Geek Force who live in Nottingham are getting that interview for me. And I'm even in contact with the bowyer who made the longbows for Kingdom of Heaven and Ridley Scott's Robin Hood. And so this is where I'm like, so for everybody out there, good content creators, they always stretch themselves in whatever they do. So like in the case of Midnight's Edge, you've watched them stretch themselves in terms of getting new sources and, getting in touch with, people in the industry and pulling all that stuff together. With a guy like me who runs a nostalgia channel, it's how much production value can they put into talking about, Mighty Mouse or something, rather, you know what I mean? So, it's always nice to see that the audience recognizes when channels are reaching for higher rungs. So,
well, you're definitely going to be giving us a run for our money in the retrospective department now that you told us all that. That's for sure.
Well, there's different formats of retrospective.
Oh, yeah.
Some of them are historically based, while others are, like in my case, it's going to be talking about all of the different iterations of Robin Hood that have happened since the silent era, and then sort of connecting those dots, those pins in the board with, thread and yarn, and figuring out why did it all started with me suffering through the 2018 Jamie Foxx, Taron Egerton, Robin Hood, and being like, why am I watching this piece of garbage? And then realizing, oh, there's something here. There's a path here. Something's happened. I have to look into this. And the next thing I knew, I was in this rabbit hole, and I was like, this is a video right here. This is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So
no, you don't realize what you've done now.
What's
the next like sword and sorcery like thing, he's going to have me out there interviewing all kinds of people. He's like, our Conan coverage is not good enough now that Michael has put out that video. We have to redo it.
Yeah, I can see it right now. It's like, because if you guys end up watching my Robin Hood thing, Tom, and if Andre calls you one day and he's like, for our next retrospective, Tom, I'm going to need you to be on camera walking randomly in the woods somewhere while you talk. Then you'll know that he's taken my format.
Oh, it'll get worse than that. It'll get much worse than that.
Okay. But yeah, I'm really looking at the last half of 2021 from Iconocon forward as a way to really get some big projects off the ground and out there on YouTube that are really entertain my audience. And I want to see what I can accomplish, on a shoestring.
Well, the great thing about the Iconocon thing is not only am I going to be a small part of it, I'm going to be listening to a lot of that stuff too. Because I mean, everybody knows I'm a big fan of soundtracks, so I'll be listening to that. There's some other great stuff you guys have, like guests and other things coming on that are going to be amazing. That it's just like Last Starfighter and a few other things you got going on.
Last Starfighter, Night of the Comet.
It's going to be so much fun. I can't wait till it happens. And I'm not totally even. It's such a whirlwind of things going on. I'm not even totally up to speed exactly how everything is going to work yet. But
Melinda has built a website, and she's built an interactive database. And it's incredible what she's accomplished. And it's all working across time zones. Like, she has coordinated through this multicolored spreadsheet that gives me vertigo when I look at it. All the different content creators and what time zones they're in, and how they've committed to each time slot for each panel, and what channel is hosting each discussion, and which ones are finished videos. It's mind-boggling what she and Tony at Analog have done. Mind-boggling. And Melinda just said the schedule for Iconocon launches on Sunday. So everybody will see it Sunday. And yes, Lindsay, the Cynical Geek, we have Lance Guest and Catherine Mary Stewart for a live stream during Iconocon talking about The Last Starfighter, as well as a number of other. We're gonna broaden the discussion. It'll be about Last Starfighter, but it'll also be about the evolution of special effects and other things that they as performers can tell us about, because they are still working actors in the industry.
Oh, so you're going to talk to them about Jaws: The Revenge?
Oh, absolutely. I absolutely will. And I'll talk to we will talk to Catherine Mary Stewart about Night Flyers, and we'll talk about all those different films that they've been in. Like, their IMDb is still very up to date, and they're still doing projects now. They might be smaller projects, but they're still working. So
yeah, very, very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I also look forward to Iconicon, and we'll have have our own stream up before Sunday then, so that you can include that in the release. So we'll have that ready. Yeah, awesome. Perfect.
Yep.
And with that, I would like to say thank you, Michael, for joining us again. It's always a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me. The fact that I keep getting invited back actually means a lot to me, because it's actually like, oh, I haven't totally screwed up. They actually still want me around, and it makes the rest of my day better. So thank you.
And it was so I don't know if you want to use the word ironic or what, that we happen to have big indie news pop today when you showed up, but I'm glad to have you here, as a big of an indie fan as you are.
Yeah.
I am actually wearing.
To be clear, though, it's actually only indie rumors. We don't know. It's not officially announced or anything. And I believe I saw Stephanie Janishek comment that there's no legit delays for Indy 5 yet. Latest I got from my guys in Britain, filming last going on. And we'll see what happens with it. Maybe it's all just rumor and they'll still be able to film everything exactly as is. Or it could be that they're doing pickups and cover-up, but Harrison Ford is out for the next 6 weeks. We don't know. We'll just have to wait with the information there is. So let's just hope for the best and a swift recovery for for Harrison Ford, whatever the case may be. And just towards the end here, Mr. Tickletrunk sent us a $3 Canadian super sticker. And my fellow Norseman, Taurus Plain, says for 100 Norwegian krona, hey, new guy, Retroblasting, love from Norway. Old guys, Tom and Andre, boo, take my money. Well, tusen takk, we will. And also speaking of Norway and Norwegian, for those of you that haven't seen it, if you head on over to Midnight's Edge After Dark, we actually have a subtitled version of Loki singing in Norwegian from episode 3 of Marvel's Loki series. That sequence is actually the highlight of the series so far, so do check that out.
And for all of you wondering, I've seen some chatter about Iconocon. Iconocon is a free online convention. So it's just you having to know the schedule and then follow along and go to the different YouTube channels that are hosting content that interests you. It is not, I just want to be clear, like people hear convention and then they think there might be like a pay firewall or something. This is an online convention. All the content is free to consume. So we look forward to seeing you guys in the live chats and stuff. So,
yes, indeed. So that's going to be brilliant. Of course, we will be there. And and here's the link to the Loki translated Loki song. So check that one out if you haven't already. And with that, yes, thank you, Michael, for joining us today. Thank you, Melinda, for organizing the incredible Iconocon and for being here and chiming in, even if you weren't like on stream with us. But we look forward to having you on as soon as opportunity permits. Also, I would like to say thank you to every single one in the chat for spending this Friday morning or afternoon or evening, whatever the case may be, with us. We really, really appreciate you taking the time. And here, of course, we then also have the link to Iconocon with more detail. So do check that out. And with that, I do believe, Tom, it's time for some koalas in the rain. Now
my
would be a
thing
good
has
time.
been, it's not going. Hang on.
Okay, fine, I'll do it.
Koalas in the rain, koalas in the rain, no fucks given. Koalas in the rain.